This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Bunts this one. Schmidt charging, Smith throwing, they got him, and that's the ball game. Well, we've just about seen it all. An attempted bunt to end the game.
And that game officially eliminates St. Louis from postseason consideration.
That's what it sounded like last night, both on the Giants TV network and also FanDuel Sports Midwest, alongside Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK.
Still I can't. You gonna sing it with me, buddy?
I'm glad it's over.
Was there a lot of sad feelings last night when that happened?
They pulled me back in because they had the comeback and it was the whole thing. No, I'm not talking about like making the playoffs.
Oh, okay, just for the game.
Yeah,
okay.
the game overall, it felt as though they might find a way to win, and then they found a way to lose once again.
Cardinal season.
That part felt a little strange, but beyond that, no, I didn't have a whole lot of, concerns or frustration or disappointment. I didn't anticipate that this team was going to make the playoffs for, the last 2 months. I think it's amazing that they were still in the race.
Well, and that was the sliver of me last night, because everybody knows me. Ferrario loves chaos. Like, when I looked at the scoreboard and the Reds lost in the 11th with bases loaded, that's a Cardinals move. The Mets lose, the Diamondbacks were losing, and I'm like, you know what? Just out of spite towards baseball, just let the Cardinals in.
Sure.
Just let the Cardinals in, and everyone looks at me like, there is a team that is like, minus 86 in run differential. That is a playoff team right now. There was a sliver of me, and then I saw Jose Fermin in the game, and I'm like, oh, okay, no, they don't deserve to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I was just like ready for the year to be over, right? So we could just quit pretending. They're like, hey, they're still alive, everybody. It's like, man, they gave up on July 31st. And even then, we weren't even happy with the way they gave up, right? They should have traded one of their left-handed bats. They should have traded JoJo Romero.
If I'm 100%, they gave up when Eric Fetty made that start following, what was it?
I agree.
Yeah.
They gave up when Fetty pitched after the Chicago Cubs game on July 6th.
I was going to say, wasn't that like 4th of July weekend?
4 walks, 3 earned runs, made it 1 1/3, and then they said, you know what? Let's start Fetty again, and he pitched against the Braves.
And then let's do it one more time after that.
At that point, they knew what they were doing. They gave up on July 6th.
Yeah, I think he had at least, at a minimum, 2 too many starts in a Cardinals uniform. And guess what? Cardinals are now out of the playoffs by, is it 3.5 games? Between those that decision, and the bullpen decisions at the beginning of the season. These are front office decisions, by the way. This is not me blaming Ollie Marmol. He didn't come to this decision on his own. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, based upon his public comments, I don't know that Ollie wanted to start Eric Fetty in those final couple of starts.
You can also read his body language when they panned to him and Fetty was on the mound.
Yeah, so that decision plus the Fernandez decision where, hey, we need to develop a reliever at the big league level. And then he didn't make it back to the big league level for 4 months. I would say those two are pretty significant contributing factors. And then if you add in, just one of Mason Wynn's injury, Wilson Contreras' injury, Ivan Herrera, multiple injuries this year, Brendan Donovan with the injury, the turf toe that ultimately led to the groin issue. If you have one of those guys stay healthy, guys, I'm not telling you this team was good this year. It wasn't. They're a legit 75 to 80 win team. I think that's real. But they're currently at 78 wins, and all of that stuff happened. They probably should have made the playoffs this year because of how terrible the National League was around them. I mean, the front office, this is because of them.
Yeah.
They have to wear this one this season.
You're not wrong. It just feels like it's the same dog and pony show that you do, where it's like, oh, they made the playoffs, and then we have to act like we're impressed when they didn't deserve to be in the playoffs, and then they get bounced in around and like, well, now what do we do? Like, it's just the same thing. It's why when we found out about the actual rebuild, there was just a sigh of relief to where it's like, can we just please stop this denial that the Cardinals have been in? That it would have been nice to have playoff baseball. I'm not saying that because I want playoff baseball in St. Louis, but I'm sick of the fake playoff baseball to where it's like, hey, you're a playoff team, but you're not going to score a run.
Wouldn't you have felt this year was a little different, though? Maybe I'm wrong. I would have felt different about this
I feel like the runway was more successful than what it feels now.
I don't think that they're pretending anymore. They came into the season acknowledging what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, could they have done it to a greater degree? Sure, but it was the final year of Mo. I knew there was going to be this transition in place, whatever. This offseason, I don't think anybody was under this false impression that they were going to believe in what they had built this year if they had won 84 games and snuck into the playoffs after selling at the deadline. No, they know what they need to do. We all know what they need to do, but they didn't give themselves the best chance to put their best foot forward. And that's what's frustrating to me. We all said it at the time. The Cardinals, when they make the playoffs, they sneak in. And so if they end up missing by a couple of games, we said it is fair to hold the Cardinals to this decision. We were talking about it at the beginning of the season with Fernandez, and now we're talking about it as well with what they did with Eric Fetty. Those two decisions, I think it's fair to say, cost them 4 or 5 games over the course of the year. You're now 3.5 games back in the playoff race. Again, none of this is to suggest that the Cardinals were a good baseball team this year or that you should have celebrated and it should have been this great thing that the Cardinals made it into postseason contention. No, none of that's the case. But making the playoffs is better than not, and it doesn't really change your draft status all that much. So the fact that they didn't allow for this to be an out for them, I find that to be quite frustrating. And it's just the latest reminder that over the last 3 to 5 years or so, they have not given themselves the best chance possible. And yes, I agree with Alex. I am happy that there's a transition in place that hopefully will allow for that in future seasons. But there's also no guarantee of it. Yeah. This might have been our last taste of playoff baseball for the next 3 to 5 years. Oof. And if that was the case, I would have preferred to see that. As opposed to what we now get, which is a whole hell of a lot of nothing.
And I think you brought this up yesterday, or we've talked about it a couple of times. You then get to see what these guys look like in October, right? What does McGravy look like on the biggest stage? Because he would have started a game 2 for you. What does Burleson and Herrera look like, right? We criticized Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado for being great players in the regular season, but shrinking when they got to October. Well, now you would have found out if you were able to get these guys here. And it is frustrating that it was, once again, kind of self-sabotage to where you end up sticking around with guys that everybody knew wasn't going to work out longer than you should have. Yeah, I agree. They make the playoffs, they probably get bounced early on. And if we're being honest, even if they do what we're talking about and they are 5 games better and they end up being like a 83, 84 win team, they were still going to need the Mets to collapse.
Yes.
Right? Because the Mets were a team that was playing like a 90 win pace team there for a while that you looked at and said, boy, this wild card picture, I think we talked about it, it's going to take about 90 wins to get into the wild card picture. And that's what it was going to end up being. I mean, the Padres are going to end up probably around 88. Cubs will probably get to 90 when they beat the Cardinals this weekend. The Mets were really the only reason this was a conversation, but at least you could have been in the conversation, right? You could have gotten in, you could have learned a lot about what you had internally with these guys when the lights were the brightest in October.
I think there's only a couple of guys that you were going, like McGravy's one of those, Liberatore's probably one of them, but I mean Mason Wynn's injured. I don't know.
He would have played though.
Probably, but he's still injured, and then you're going to look at if he doesn't perform in the playoffs, it's like, well, he's banged up. So I don't know if you're going to get the same answers. I guess it
wouldn't have been a bad thing though.
No, I mean it's not, but I mean a lot of these guys are banged up, and I mean they're banged up in the playoffs too. I guess my bigger issue is I think I'm stuck in the old Cardinals regime, which is why I'm happy that this transition is happening, because if they would have made the playoffs, I think they would have, in the old regime, convinced themselves that we don't need to move off of these players. These players got us to the playoffs. Nootbaar's probably still here. Donovan's probably still here. And I think it is best for this team to start cutting ties. And some of these veterans, I don't know if they're going to be willing to go.
And that's where we're going in the fork of the road moment here, where like you go that direction, I go in a different direction. I don't think Chaim Bloom was under this false impression that they were good enough. Chaim seems to have fully acknowledged, and we'll hear next week where he's at on this, but I don't think 84 wins would have been like, ha, we figured it out, boys. Rebuild doesn't need to happen anymore. Now we're feeling good. Our minor league system, you saw Springfield, they won their championship last night. Like, we're good. I don't believe that he would have felt that way. I think he would have looked at this for what it is, which was, hey, look at that run differential. -40, let's say, like if they had won a few more games. -40 on the season. That's who we are. We're not a good baseball team right now. We need to get to the place where we feel good about who we are and where we're not just sneaking into the playoffs because somebody else collapsed, but we're earning our spot into the playoffs because of our performance over the course of the full season. So I think that was always going to be their plan heading into the offseason, even if they had won 84 games this year and did find a way in. Before we get out of here and talk about a couple of the decisions that could be looming, including Sonny Gray, we've talked a lot about the lessons from the Cardinals this season. We don't need to rehash that again. I'm sure we'll do that 100 times during the offseason, though. For Major League Baseball at large, there are going to be 0 teams this season that win at least 100 games. Last year, there were 0 teams that won at least 100 games. 2023, there were 3. 2022, there were 4. 2021, 3. And then 4, 3, 3. There was a stretch of time there from 2017 to 2023 where every season, non-COVID year, there were at least 3 teams that won 100 games. There have been 0 since, and prior to that time, Alex, from 2005 to 2016, that 11-year span, there were 6 teams that won 100 games. So in 2014, 13, 12, 10, 7, and 6, there were 0 teams in any of those seasons that won at least 100 games. So we entered a stretch where baseball got weird. There were a lot of 100-plus win teams, and it felt as though those teams were dominant. It was the Astros, it was the Yankees, it was the Dodgers in most of those seasons. And now we haven't seen it since. There were as many 100-win teams in 2022 and 2023 combined as there were in 2005 to 2016 combined.
Wow.
Are we seeing a reversion to what baseball was for that decade? Or is this just a weird stretch over the last couple of years? And we'll get back to where we had these super teams. What do you make of it? Because it's my biggest lesson from this season is my firm opinion is this is more of what we're going to see. It's going to be a lower bar to clear. There are fewer tanking teams, and there are fewer teams that had the process of tanking that are fully formed than there were in that 5 to 7 year stretch. Where do you fall on this? What's your biggest lesson from baseball?
I think I fall kind of where you're looking at it. I mean, part of me looks at it as weird because, I mean, the Dodgers were without Mookie Betts for like 3/4 of the season because he was struggling as who he typically was. The Phillies have had injuries
in terms of performance.
Yeah, performance.
He was healthy,
performance. But I mean, like the performance shows he just wasn't the same guy.
Correct.
I mean, other than that might be talking about a 100-win team. But I do fall in line with you. Like, there just are fewer tanking teams right now in Major League Baseball. And it just feels like there's more teams that kind of float around the middle that have the chance to actually play the damage card a little bit more than typically in years past. So I think I fall more in line of where you're coming at because I don't think this is a one-off to where we get back to multiple super teams. I think people have tried to build super teams, but it's fallen flat because injuries pop up and that typically down spiral after that.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be more of the norm because I think you've seen teams kind of learn the lesson over the last couple of years is, hey, that whole like let's tear it straight down to the studs and then let's rebuild this back up. It doesn't work as clean as the Astros made it look and how the Cubs made it look, right? Because we've seen, like, the White Sox, they're in a rebuild after exiting another rebuild. And
Orioles might be in the same spot.
Baltimore's in the same spot. So you've got these organizations. The Pirates, I think, are on, like, their 4th rebuild since they're tore it all down. Colorado is in their rebuild now. It's just not that easy to get out of these rebuilds. And I think that's kind of become the lesson for some of these teams. That doesn't mean some of these teams are going to try and get closer towards the middle of the pack. Like I think the Rangers, for example, are an organization that look at and go, hey, retooling might be more of our route, right? We still got 2 stars. Let's kind of go more of the retool route. And when you go that path, yeah, you end up with fewer teams that end up losing 100 games. There's only going to be 2 100-loss teams this season. White Sox and Colorado Rockies. Nobody else is going to be in that. And you look across baseball, there's nobody that is in like a full, like, let's just completely tear this thing down to the studs outside of Colorado. Even the White Sox are kind of done because they have nothing to pick apart from their roster anymore.
Yep.
That's about it. You know, there are no teams that are 4 or 5 that are really just have no talent, can't win any ball games. That doesn't exist anymore to where you're seeing this talent get divvied out. And I think the balanced schedule has helped this as well.
I think the balanced schedule has helped. I think there's just in general a compression toward the middle for teams. I think maybe the extra wild card has helped that as well, where fewer teams are full sell-off at the trade deadline because more teams are in it. So that means there's, you know, more competitiveness down the stretch as well. I think a lot of stuff is leading to this, but if I'm going to take a big picture lesson from the 2025 season, it's that. The barrier to get in is lower, and overall, teams are not quite the same level of ceiling as they once were. And I think there's a lesson for that can be localized as well. I think for a lot of fans, you want to get back to what you were in 2004, what you were in the early 2000s overall. Most teams across baseball are not that. There are very few teams right now that look at what they have and say, yeah, we have a perfect collection of players. The Cardinals felt that way in the early 2000s most of the time. I'm not sure there's a single roster in Major League Baseball that now feels that way. All right, alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We also have Bradford Bruns in with us today. We got a 4-man show because we were supposed to be out of the Centene community. Ice Center, and then they decided that they're not doing a skate today. So we are here in the studio with you guys until 2 o'clock. 314-399-9646. That's the Your Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. YouTube chat is off and running at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. We'll be joined by Joey Vitale coming up in about 15 minutes. But next, what would a Sonny Gray departure mean for the Cardinals this offseason? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
St. Louis Blues hockey can be heard exclusively on 101 ESPN. Get the info you need before and after every Blues game with the First Community pre- and post-game show. First Community Credit Union. Take your best shot with First Community. And presented by Scott Lee Heating Company and Urban Chestnut. They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, Bradford Bruns on the ones and twos for us today. Sonny Gray spoke last night after his performance and made it pretty clear. I don't know if you guys had the same read as me, but for my impression of his comments, yeah, I'm probably not going to be here next year. That was my
impression.
My general vibe after reading some of these quotes. So I'll read some of these to you guys. I'll let you have your own impression. He said, quote, I don't know what the future holds for me. I've enjoyed my time in St. Louis. I love the people, but I came here to win. I signed here 2 years ago with the expectation of winning and trying to win. That hasn't played out that way. He then continued. I've talked to Chaim Bloom a bunch. I know the deal. I know the direction. Asked if that direction would be a good fit for him. Gray, according to Katie Wu of The Athletic, paused before declining to answer. Quote, I'm not in the right state of mind to answer that question right now, he said. There are a few more quotes, but that was the gist of what he had to say last night to reporters. Let's start out with the obvious. When you heard these quotes, you know what the situation is for the St. Louis Cardinals. Your impression was what, Alex?
He gone. Okay. I mean, it's as simple as that. My impression when I signed 2 years ago was I was going to be winning, and we haven't done a lot of winning, and there's not any winning in the future. I mean, it's essentially saying, like, I don't want to be here. We're trying to say it as kindly as possible. So now it comes down to the no trade clause, and can you find a match that you can pull the trade off with? But it sure sounds like, reading that and hearing it, Sonny Gray knows where or does not want to be here anymore. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing on his end. He wanted to win. Frankly, in his opinion, he came here after the 22 season, and it was like, oh, hey, this team might be good. And then it's fallen flat on their face. So, yeah, I think Sonny Gray's gone.
Yeah, I agree. I think Sonny Gray's open to a trade, and I think the Cardinals will be open to a trade because they'll be looking to save money by moving on from Sonny Gray this offseason. And if you're him, like, I get it, right? Like, you're not a spring chicken anymore. You're 36 years old. You want to go out and you want to play meaningful baseball at this point in your career, and he can still pitch at an elite level. I know the ERA wasn't there, and I think the signing overall has been a C for the Cardinals. But, man, if you're Sonny Gray, I could get how he convinced himself this year, right? Hey, it's young talent. I've seen some of these guys. I can maybe see a path to where we end up being better than people are expecting. Now there's no argument for that, right? Like, they're talking about picking the roster apart. They're using words like rebuild. They're leaking that out to the media. If you're Sonny Gray, it makes all the sense in the world to request out. And I get the argument of, hey, he should be here next year for the Cardinals, even if he does want to be out because they're going to need innings for their rotation. I think they're at the point now where it's probably better just to separate and just kind of find a way to piece together the rotation.
Got a few questions here from the text line from I Hate Paper Straws. Guys, what changed since the trade deadline? The time to trade Sonny was back when he had a market, and then somebody, Percy Blumpkin, says, I just don't get it. Why weren't they moved last offseason? Did you think that you were going to compete this year? Why are they now willing to leave? I think some of these players, and you may think this is crazy, but some of them genuinely believe that the Cardinals had a shot to compete this year.
Wasn't that Sonny Gray's quote? Like,
yes.
You want to be a part of it?
I mean, when you look at what the Cardinals had coming back, if you squinted hard enough, you could see how it would happen. They weren't coming off of a terrible season, guys. I know we always frame it as though last year was this absolute abomination. They won 83 games. If they had done that again this year, they would be one game out of a playoff spot, potentially. So it wasn't crazy to believe that the Cardinals could have at least competed this year, even if not truly contending, and that may have been enough for some of these guys. The other thing you have to keep in mind, these guys have families, man. And so for some of them, they don't want to move halfway across the country if they don't have to. You have to incentivize them to do so. And if they think, hey, I still believe I could potentially win here. I signed here for a reason. My contract is in a good spot. I feel good about the organization. I'm comfortable with all of this stuff. I want to be a reason why we're winning as well. Well, yeah, that's why. That's why they ended up staying here. And now they look at it, they hear from Chaim Bloom, and he's making it clear to everybody, it seems like, behind the scenes. This is a rebuild. Like, not a retool, not a reset. This is a true rebuild. We will not be adding this offseason. What you see here, that's what we've got for the Major League roster next year. And beyond that, it's going to be scrap heap signings and a bunch of minor leaguers that are making their way to the majors. That's the goal for 2026. And if I hear that and I'm Sonny, now it's a lot harder to convince myself, yeah, this is going to be better next year. So I think that explains it. And beyond that, like, if I'm the Cardinals, that's where I think it gets really interesting. Ownership, totally get why they would want to trade Sonny Gray. If I'm the front office, though, and Sonny Gray hands me like a 5-team list of places that I'm willing to go to, because he's got the full no trade clause, I'm still not entirely convinced that it makes sense for them to trade him. Ownership, yes. Front office-wise, I'm going to have to sign somebody to replace you. I'm probably not getting a ton in return because there's no real competition between teams to trade for you. I'm also going to have to eat some of this money to be able to get anything of real significance in return for you. I just don't know that it makes all the sense in the world for the Cardinals to trade him. So I think he would like to go. It's not entirely up to him, though, because he's under contract for 2026. How do you guys feel about that?
I mean, they do need innings. I'm not denying that. I mean, you lose Sonny Gray, you're essentially bleeped. You got like 3 guys, and one of them potentially is going to be on an innings limit with Kyle Leahy next year. And
we're not even sure he's a starter.
And
that's still a project.
You're going into free agency, or you're forcing Chaim Bloom to acquire potential major league ready pitchers in these trades if he pulls them off, which who knows if you're able to do that. So I get that. If ownership says it feels like the front office is going to have to follow it. And if ownership says we want this off of the books, and that's what this feels like the rebuild truly is. It's like, look, let's get rid of this money. And now you've got players that are coming out saying, look, we just don't know if we want to be here, if there's not going to be any winning. So yes, you want to keep Sonny Gray, but I don't think ownership is going to allow Sonny Gray to stay, because this is just going to be a clean wipe off of the books, and we're going into a rebuild.
Does that bother you guys at all? That they're potentially going into next year. I mean, if you get rid of Sonny Gray, let's say they have to eat $10 million there, and maybe it's $10 million on Nolan Arenado. So that's $20 million that you're going to be retaining, but you're getting rid of about $50 million there in total. You'd be looking at, I think, like a 90-ish to $100 million payroll next year, which is roughly in line with like what the Reds had this year. Maybe it's somewhere between where the Reds and the Pirates were at. So you'd be like 25th-ish in Major League Baseball and payroll obligations. Does that bother you at all?
Doesn't bother me, because you're going into a rebuild. And when you go into these rebuilds, like, you kind of have to tear it down to the studs, and you have to try and get as bad as humanly possible. And part of that is moving on from guys like Sonny Gray, moving on from guys like Nolan Arenado. Arenado, I mean, even if he's here, he probably hurts you out. So if you're ownership, you're going to look at that and say, let's try and save money. It doesn't bother me for the now. Where it will bother me is if they get comfortable when they start to build that process back up and they start winning, say, in 2 years, and they've got a payroll that is what you're talking about with like the Pirates or the Reds in like bottom 5, bottom 7 of the league, and then they just get comfortable with that. Go, man, why did we ever have a top 12 payroll when we can win when we're here in the bottom 10? That's my biggest fear, because teams get comfortable with this, right? They get comfortable saving this kind of money and making money getting into October with that low of a payroll. I'm cool with doing it now, but as you start to build this thing back up through this rebuild process, that's when I would start to be angry if it sits this low.
I agree with that, but I'm also cool with it now as long as you do it the right way. And what I mean by that is Sonny Gray is gone. That doesn't mean Quinn Matthews should automatically be a major league pitcher. That doesn't mean Liam Doyle should be getting reps in May in the major leagues if he looks ready. Like, you can't expedite those other players and ruin their careers because you're trying to fill innings in the middle of your rebuild. Like, doing it the right way means you're going to have to go out there and sign somebody. Maybe cheap, maybe he's going to be awful. You need to sign somebody who's going to eat innings, not just for Sonny Gray, but also for Miles Mikolas, so that you're not ruining what the rebuild is supposed to be.
It bothers me. It really does. And I'm not saying you got to spend just to spend, but the idea that the Cardinals would be closer to the Pirates than they would be to, I don't know, even the Brewers, like you would be spending similar to the Cleveland Guardians. It's not Cardinals baseball. It's just not Cardinals baseball, man.
Are they close to the Blues
Kansas
payroll?
City, I think less than the Blues.
Didn't we talk about this a couple of weeks ago where we were like, there's no way that happens?
The Kansas City Royals are spending $138 million on their payroll this year, and there's really no way for them to get much lower than that. You're going to be well below, significantly below where the Royals are right now. You're probably going to fall below where the Twins are, and the Twins have done everything possible to decrease their payroll as much as humanly possible. So, yeah, this would bother me. And the other thing that would play into this, Alex, I'm glad you said you got to do it the right way. Part of this is, are you going to require Chaim Bloom to then, in part of the return this offseason for Sonny Gray, for Nolan Arenado, for Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, whomever you decide to trade, are you going to require him to add pitchers that are major league ready in those deals? So that way you can bypass the free agent market and what I'm talking about, where you've got to go pay $10 million for one of those starters. Is that going to be the plan? to make it as cheap as humanly possible, and we're not actually going out to the market. No, BK, you're crazy there. We're going to go get a $2 million pitcher that's a pre-arb player, and you're required to do that with these returns instead of getting the best, highest upside minor league return that you can for some of these players. No, you've got to get a very specific package in return, which then limits not only the teams that you could trade a guy like Sonny Gray to, but also the package that you are willing and able to get in return for him. That would also bother me in these kinds of situations. So it's just weird, man. All of this feels wrong for where the Cardinals have been for 30 years. So, yeah, it does bother me a little bit. I understand it. I get it from a baseball sense and from a business sense, how you can talk yourself into it. But the idea that the Cardinals are going to be in your company is now the Pirates and the Guardians and the Rays.
Hey, 2 of those are playoff teams.
I mean, that's not Cardinals. That's not Cardinals baseball to me.
It might be the new Cardinals baseball.
Touche.
I also don't think this was like ill-fated timing. And what I mean by that is like the Heim Bloom hire. You don't bring in a guy with small market experience if you don't maybe start keeping payroll, maybe not this low, but bottom 15 in the league. That is, again, I've brought that up as a concern.
That to me is more understandable. If you're spending $140-ish million a year, that's roughly 17th in Major League Baseball, 18th in Major League Baseball. I think there's a significant difference between that and $90 million.
I hate to go down this path because I'm not trying to start rumors, but doesn't this make you wonder if the team is considering being sold?
I don't think so. I think there's maybe a transition taking place in the DeWitt family, though, where maybe this is what teams Bill DeWitt the third. And this is all speculation by us. Let's make this very clear.
Concrete.
But I think some of this might be them looking at the current situation in Major League Baseball, the finances of everything. I'm not saying this to say anything negative about the fan base, I promise you, but the lack of sales in terms of the tickets this year, a reflection of that as well. And then maybe down the road, a transition from junior to Bill DeWitt III. I could see that maybe playing into some of these.
This isn't like normal for a rebuild. It's normal when you're rebuilding, but you're also trying to shed as much payroll as possible to move the team to somebody else. And that's, again, total speculation, but it's just as odd that this is the direction they're going when all they've been talking about is we want to draft and develop and go a youth movement, but it's like you still have to complement that with pieces that can actually get you through a 162 season.
Somebody on the text line said, but BK, if you're going to go full-blown rebuild and get a higher draft pick to find your Bobby Witt Jr., then this is what you've got to do.
That's over.
I mean, it's a strategy that you could take. We have seen, though, that has not been as successful in recent seasons as it was previously. I'll go ahead and give you, these are since 2013, the list of the number 1 overall selections in Major League Baseball. You ready?
This cannot be a good list.
This is since 2013.
Let's play a game of how many of these do you remember?
Mark Appel, Brady Aiken, Dansby Swanson, Mickey Moniak, Royce Lewis, Casey Mize, Adley Rutschman, Spencer Torkelson, Henry Davis, Jackson Holliday, Paul Skeens.
Oh, that guy's really good.
Travis Bazana, and then Eli Willits. Bazana.
Those are the last 2.
Yeah, those are the last 2 guys. So,
like, one guy's become a generation player, and that's Paul Skeens.
Yeah. Before that, it was much more successful. I mean, you had a stretch there where David Price, Steven Strasburg, Bryce Harper, Garrett Cole, Carlos Correa. These are all legit dudes that you can build a franchise around. But for the last 13 years, it hasn't been that. So if that's the plan, I mean, hope you have a lifeboat. 'Cause that's not a plan. That's wish.
That sounds like a rebuild going into another rebuild.
Yeah, I don't think a lifeboat's going to save you.
In 15 minutes, we're going to get into questions and answers. But next, Joey Vitale, by the way, moving to 12 o'clock today. We will talk about the Blues coming up next. What's the downside to keeping Justin Carbonneau on the Blues roster? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN salutes our nation's military. Join the Fast Lane next Thursday, October 2nd, for a special live military appreciation broadcast from 2 to 6 p.m. at Scott Air Force Base for service members, their families, and anyone currently on base. Join us for this special Fast Lane military appreciation live broadcast next Thursday from 2 to 6 p.m. at Scott Air Force Base. Brought to you by Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation. For heating repairs and maintenance, visit aircomfortservice.com. Want to hear the highlights? Need player reaction? Want more analysis and opinion? It's all here on Curbside, your next day postgame podcast with a voice of the St. Louis Blues, Chris Kerber. Catch new episodes of Curbside every morning after every Blues game on 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. Curbside is presented by Blue Note Roofing, roofing, siding, and gutters. Your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofing.com for a free inspection. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Playoff hopes extinguished for Redbirds. Good morning, I'm Bradford Bruns. This Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals were mathematically eliminated from postseason contention last night, dropping that series finale to San Francisco 4-3. Riley O'Brien taking the L in relief after Sonny Gray went 6 innings and allowed 2 earned runs. Offensively, Brendan Donovan smacked another double, his 32nd of the season, and Ivan Herrera clubbed 2 more hits. On the ice, the Blues back in action this weekend, Saturday on 101 ESPN, 6 p.m. puck drop versus visiting Chicago. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet plus Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
With Alex and T1 on BK, so Justin Carbonneau has been one of the biggest storyline in Blues camp so far, Alex. I don't think he's going to make the roster heading out of camp. However, it continues to be something that is at least under discussion until he is sent back officially to juniors. So earlier today, over at The Athletic, Jeremy Rutherford put out his early training camp roster projection. He basically has every player that you would have thought going into camp that would make the roster, making the team coming out of camp. He's got Bukestad as that third-line winger, Sonny as the fourth-line center, and then his extras are Texier and Joseph. So he has Lucic not making the roster, he has Carbonneau not making the roster, Dvorsky, etc. All of them ended up either going to the AHL, juniors, etc. Alex, I want to flip the conversation because we've talked about what the upside could be of Carbonneau making this roster, why it could make sense, how it helps, all these different things. What's the potential downside to keeping Justin Carbonneau in your mind? Assuming that he continues to play the way that he has thus far, what is the downside to keeping Justin Carbonneau?
I don't see a downside to keeping Justin Carbonneau. Because you've got this 9-game trial loophole. Like, you get 9 games of 18-year-old Justin Carbonneau at the NHL, and maybe you find a diamond. Maybe you find a guy that's got the competitive edge, that's able to learn quickly, that's got the body and the skill to play a third-line role in the NHL. And that's a massive win for the Blues. 1, they drafted him 19th overall, and 2, that's depth offense right there. And if it doesn't go well in 9 games, then you just send it back to juniors. And you say, you know what? We appreciate what you did. We think you're going to be a star for us. Go back to juniors and work on these elements. And next year at training camp, take the same shot at winning this team out of training camp. Like, they did this with Pietrangelo. Pietrangelo's first year, he got the 9-game trial, and they said, nope, not ready. And they'll sent him back to juniors. He played in juniors. And then the following year, he competed at camp once again. To me, there's no downside. I think the downside is actually for the Blues if he makes the roster of what you do in terms of the depth, but I don't really care about that because Carbonneau might be something that provides me some depth offense. So I see only positives if Carbonneau makes this roster because of that 9-game trial.
Yeah, I don't see that many downsides to it either because of what you're talking about because you get the 9-game trial. And I don't think that stunts anything with his growth. In fact, I think it probably is more helpful for his growth because he gets to see what it's like going up against legit NHL pros for 9 games, unlike in the preseason where you're seeing like maybe 1 line of NHLers, the rest is AHL filled out lines. So you get to see that. You get to see him for 9 games, see what it looks like. And I know that the Blues would probably argue the depth thing, which you brought up there with, hey, if we keep Carbonneau, then we have to put probably one of Joseph or Texier through waivers. And I would say, okay, I don't really view that as much of a loss because if those guys do get claimed, okay, so sure, you did lose a little bit of depth. You did lose Texier, but I don't think that's anything that's really breaking your team if you lose Texier. And I would also make the argument, and I bring this up with the Cardinals all the time, Like, okay, so you lose out on that guy. Say Carbonneau does have to go back to juniors after 9 games. It's the front office's job to go find a 14th forward, and you could probably claim one of those guys off of waivers throughout the season, right? So I don't think there's anything that would really break the bank if you end up keeping him here and there's any kind of downside. I think the answers that you can find out if you do this are positive answers. I don't think there is a downside.
So I think there are 2 things that I would throw into the mix because you guys are both very positive on this. I'll play the devil's advocate here. You guys know where I stand. I like the idea of Justin Carbonneau making this roster. 1, it's about the player. What if he's not ready? And you do have to send him back down to juniors this year. What did this stretch of time really gain you with him if he's truly just not ready? 2, it's about the team. Alex, how many times have we talked about the team needing to get off to a hot start? This team needing this year to not get off to a 500 start prior to Thanksgiving, the stretch time that Joey always talks about, where if you're in the playoffs at that point, you've got like a 50-50 proposition. I think it's even above that of making it to the postseason. Well, if he's not ready and it ends up costing your team a bit early on where you're trying to teach an 18-year-old how to play at the NHL level, which, would be a totally reasonable thing for him not to be ready for, then you ended up just giving him this trial and ultimately costing your team. So I do think that is the downside. 1, what if the player's not ready? And 2, what does that mean for your team in the event that he's not ready, or you're potentially costing yourself some games early on that end up maybe hurting you in the playoff race?
Yeah, I don't know if I look at those as downsides, though, because if he's not ready, that's not a bad thing. He got a taste of 9 games at the NHL to say, okay, this is where I lack, and I can spend an entire junior season focusing on, you know what, I'm very deficient in the defensive side of my game, or I need to be better in terms of one-timers or floating in the offensive zone. Like, I think that is beneficial, even if you got to go back to juniors and you don't feel ready. The slow start out of the gate is real. Like, I brought this stat up last week. Like, the last 3 seasons, they've been 1 game above 500 when it gets to Thanksgiving. And every one of those seasons, they've either missed the playoffs or they've had to push to do an insane stretch to get to the playoffs. So you can't start out slow out of the gate. But my argument on the Carbonneau not being a bad thing and hindering the team from getting off to that hot start is that hot start is mostly reliant on your best players being your best players. Like, once you get into the middle of the season, that's where the depth really needs to shine for you. And that's where it could hurt you if you have a Carbonneau. Like, Carbonneau playing in those first 9 games, it wouldn't surprise me if you're seeing 11 or 12 minutes out of him. But I could argue the same thing if Joseph's in the lineup playing the 4th line, or if Texier's in the lineup on the 3rd line, they'd rotate. So I don't think that's going to hinder your chances. In fact, I think it might actually benefit you, because with his shot and his offensive mindset, you might win a game that maybe you weren't supposed to.
We also have to acknowledge, though, the downside to that, which is maybe he doesn't have a defensive mindset that's ready for the NHL. He ends up not having his responsibility covered in his own zone, or he makes a couple of bad passes in his own zone that end up with the puck back in his net. These are all very possible. We have to at least acknowledge he's not a ready-made NHLer right now. He looks very good on the ice, but even Jim Montgomery has acknowledged after some of these practices, yeah, there's some defensive responsibility stuff that needs to get ironed out, as you would anticipate with an 18-year-old player. The other thing, and IROC said this over on the YouTube chat, I would have to look more into this, but one potential downside on it is if you do that 9-game trial this year, you can't do it next year. So in the event...
Petro did 8 his first year and then 9 the next year.
So you can do that.
Yeah, so I believe now maybe they have changed because there's been new CBA since Alex Pietrangelo did this, but in 2008, 2009, he played 8 seasons and then finished the year with his OHL team and then played 1 game and then the playoffs in the AHL. And then in 2009, 2010, he played 9 games and then went back to his juniors team. But again, CBA has changed since then.
I don't get the impression. Do you think he would go back to his juniors team next year, though?
No.
I think next year would be an AHL.
Yeah, next year he'd be, next year he'd be 19 going on 20. But next year in the new CBA, they are eligible to put 1 player that's younger than the age of 20 into the AHL. Like the new CBA, because now juniors players cannot play in the AHL. Next year's CBA, you can have one player, juniors eligible, play in the American Hockey League.
My guess is he'll be an AHL player next year, and then he'd be in the similar situation to what Dvorsky was a year ago, where you could do a trial period, but once you get to a certain number of games at the NHL level, your contracts can no longer slide to the next year. So you're starting the clock early on that, is basically what I'm getting at here, instead of allowing for him next year to have this trial period that we're talking about, and then send him back down, and then have the opportunity for 2027 to be his first year in the event that next year he's also not 100% ready for the NHL level. So that's the thing, that these contracts, status situations, this is all stuff that's Ryan Miller's job. He's paid a lot of money to be able to have all of this under wraps. That could also be something that I frankly do not understand yet. I don't have the nitty gritty of where this works in the CBA, like on pat, but if that is part of the conversation, that to me would also make a lot of sense.
Yes, and like let's be frank about this. This is all hindering on him continuing to look like one of the best players on the ice. Like the first two games that we're talking about, I'm sorry, Columbus and Dallas, but you played a bunch of nobodies. With the exception of Columbus, who had a couple of NHLers on there, you played a bunch of guys who were destined for the AHL. Like, my expectation is Carbonneau is probably going to play in 3 of the next 4 games. And in 3 of the next 4 games, you're going to be going up against guys who are NHLers, like top-line NHLers. How do you perform there? Because if you still go out there and look like one of the best players on the ice, if you're skating with Bukestad or Suter or Shen, well, then you know what? You deserve the 9-game trial because you've looked like you fit in. If you look out of place, well, then this is going to be an easy decision. It still comes down to what Carbonneau does for the remaining preseason games. This isn't just 2 games and we're acting as if he's a superstar. He's still got a lot more to prove.
He's Alex S. T-Bone on BK. Bradford Bruns on the 1s and 2s for us today. Coming up in a little more than 10 minutes, we'll be joined by Joey Vitale. He's the Blues analyst for 101 ESPN. We'll ask him his thoughts on this whole situation and whether or not he thinks it makes sense for Justin Carbonneau to potentially crack this roster on opening night with the St. Louis Blues. But next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
This Sunday, it's an NFL Sunday triple header. Game 1, Falcons and Commanders. Game 2, Raiders and Bears. Game 3, Cowboys and Packers. Coverage starts Sunday morning at 11. Your destination for the NFL in St. Louis is 101 ESPN. back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. In less than 10 minutes, we'll talk to Joey Vitale, Blues analyst for 101 ESPN and FanDuel Sports Midwest. From the 636, guys, if Mizzou beats Bama, would the season then be in college football playoff or bust mode? Well, that's a fun one.
I mean, that means you've started
6-0, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't make the college football playoffs, it's
Still got some tough games, Vandy, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma, but you'd have to go 1-2 and then take care of business against everybody else, basically. So, yeah, I would say at that point it's college football playoff or disappointment. Bust feels aggressive, but disappointment, I would think, is fair to say.
I would say college football playoff or bust. Because you start 6-0.
Just like Illinois, right?
I hold these two teams to higher standards.
Illinois, college football playoff for bust.
And I still stand by that, even though they're going to bust, okay?
Busted
They busted last weekend.
I agree, though. I mean, you start 6-0, and then you've got two tough games left on the schedule, outside of, like, going to Vandy. And going to Auburn's not easy either. But those are definitely winnable games. If you can find a way to just take care of business there and not slip up along the path, you can get in with 2 losses, and then you're good enough to be in every game. So I would say, yeah, it's college football playoff or bust if they take down Bama.
From the 314, guys, Ohio State versus Washington has continued to have line movement toward Washington, despite most of the bettors being on Ohio State. What does that normally mean? It means a lot of the big money has come in on Washington. That's generally speaking what that means. I've not looked into specifically what's happening here, but if you've got a lot of tickets on one side, but the money is on the other, you'll see the line move towards the money, not the tickets. It's only a 7.5-point line. Washington, I think, is a team worthy of keeping an eye on. They've played nobody so far. They're, I think, bottom 5 in terms of non-conference strength of schedule on this season, but their quarterback looks like a stud, and this is a big test for them. If they win this weekend or keep it close, they're a college football playoff consideration.
This game to me screams Washington gets blown out.
All the money going to Washington.
Yeah, they are fun because right, like their quarterbacks played well to where it's now on my radar when Illinois goes out to Washington in a couple of weeks. They feel like, granted, I said this about Indiana last year, right? They feel like the team that you look at and go, boy, they look really impressive in the non-con slate. But now this big powerhouse in Ohio State shows up and just wipes the floor with them out west.
Yeah, I think I'm more in line of thinking with T-Bone there. Anytime this stuff starts to go heavy on one side, it tells me that there is a upset alert.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Alex, last one on this before we get to Joey Vitale on the other side. Do you think the Blues are capable of winning 8 of their first 10 games this season?
It's funny if you thought I've dove into every single one of their games in the month of October.
Winning 8 out of 10 is tough, so I would say no, regardless of who the opponents are.
Yeah, I mean, they start the season, albeit at home, but it's against Minnesota, which is never an easy thing. And then you're out Canada.
Western Canada, too. Calgary.
Everybody's favorite.
I think Utah, LA, Dallas, Calgary are going to be tough games for you. I think you could probably say about 6 of them, seemingly they should win. 6 out of the first 10, and then those next 2 is just your goalie steals it or something like that.
Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll dive into some NFL quick hitters. Joey Vitale, our friend and the Blues analyst for 101 ESPN and FanDuel Sports Midwest, joins us next here on 101 ESPN.
Each week, the Fast Lane and the Rizzuto Show are battling it out in the Pick'em Challenge. But sometimes they come together to just hang out and watch some football. You can join Jamie Rivers from the Fast Lane, also Scott Rizzuto from the Riz Show this Thursday from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Hot Shots on Lindbergh in South County. Come watch the Thursday night football game, get signed up for some Point and 101 ESPN giveaways, and enjoy a cold Bud Light. That's this Thursday, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. with me, Jamie Rivers, and Scott Rizzuto at Hot Shots on Lindbergh in South County. Brought to you by Bud Light, official beer sponsor of the NFL. Easy to Sunday, easy to enjoy. Enjoy responsibly.
Thursday night football tonight, which means, Alex, I opened up my Underdog app earlier today, and it showed I had a 75% profit boost over there on the Underdog app. It's a beautiful day when that's the case. You always need to be checking over there to see what kind of promotions they're running, whether it's the profit boost, a gimme pick. They've got all kinds of stuff over there on the football side of the Underdog app. They've also got your Ryder Cup offerings over there right now as well. You can play right here in the state of Missouri. And for me tonight, I'm going to Thursday night football. I've got lower on Cooper Kupp's receiving yardage. I've got higher on Kenneth Walker rush or receiving touchdown. Just need him to get one. And I've got higher on Chad Ryland kicking points going into tonight. Those are a 9-1 odds. I've got the 75% boost on there. Beautiful night for me tonight.
I love those kicking odds anytime I can get it. Side note, Ferrario always uses the flex on Underdog. Download the app today and sign up with promo code BKO to score $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. Promo code BKO. Millions of fans have already won billions making plays on Underdog. Will you be next? Underdog, make plays, win money. Must be 18 plus and present in Missouri. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.ncpgambling.org.
Make your picks for this week's Fastlane Pick'em Challenge at 101ESPN.com. Show off your football knowledge and see if you can top the Fastlane and the dudes from the Rizzuto Show on the point for this week's top score. The top scorer each week scores a Bud Light NFL cooler stocked with 101 ESPN and point swag. It's the Fastlane and the Riz Show throwing down all football season long in the Pick'em Challenge. Enter your picks for this week now at 101ESPN.com.
The Fastlane Pick'em Challenge is refreshed by Bud Light, official beer of the NFL. Easy to Sunday, easy to enjoy. Enjoy responsibly.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
We're close to hockey season when Joey Vitale is making his return here on BK and Ferrario. He joins us today via the Callie and Thompson hotline. He, of course, is a Blues analyst for 101 ESPN and FanDuel Sports Midwest. He joins us each Thursday throughout the Blues season. Joey, appreciate the time as always, my friend. How you doing today?
Joey! I'm so hockey is back. I miss Joey.
It's Thursday, my favorite day of the week. I tell people that. They always say Thursday. That's an odd day to be your favorite day of the week. I said it's the day I talk to the greatest sports show in all of the country. Usually around 11. I'm a little late today, boys. How you doing?
Take that, TMA. We're his favorite show during the week.
Well, I think he wanted to specify the fine print. It says in the middays in the city of St. Louis that specifically talks about sports.
I know Joey. Joey thinks this is the greatest show along with pre- and post games.
That's right.
Suck it, Doug Vaughn.
Clip that one. We're going to use that one later.
Radio wars taking place today. Joey, how you doing, man?
I'm doing awesome, guys. I'm doing awesome. I mean, it's a great time of the year. It is. You know, I know that from a sports world, you know it. You live it every single day. It's, you know, to me, the summer, you know, after the playoffs in the NHL, it's kind of this lull. The NBA's over.
Boy, was it this year?
You know what I mean? And especially with the Cardinals being the way they were, you know, it was a lull. I mean, God bless you guys. Hopefully you guys got a nice raise. You guys made the show great all summer long because it wasn't easy probably for you guys over the last couple months. But, you know, so much is now turning with football and obviously this Blues team, which is going to be a heck of a hockey team. I'm really looking forward to this year starting. You know, it's been a tough start to the preseason, but it's so freaking early. There's nothing to get panicky about. This is going to be a great hockey team. It's well coached, well rounded, and I'm just really looking forward to this upcoming little chapter of the year, if you will.
Joey, I apologize throwing this one at you without you actually thinking through it, but because you said how much excitement there is, because I feel this as well. It feels like fans stop me every time you're at Centene and talks about how this team's going to be great. You've been with the team since they won the Cup. In terms of hype going into a season, where does this one rank?
This to me, Alex, is right there up with that started the 2019 season after they won the Cup. I think that team clearly had so much clout to really defend themselves on. They had so much confidence. You just won a Stanley Cup. They brought back so many members of that Cup team. If you remember, they didn't lose a lot of bodies. Was there going to be a little bit of a Stanley Cup hangover potentially? But that team did not disappoint. I mean, if you remember that season, that was the 19 season that turned into the 20.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, Alex, weren't the Blues in first place when COVID hit? I mean, they were definitely up there. This to me, if COVID doesn't happen, do the Blues repeat like the Florida Panthers just did? I mean, they were built similar to the way the Panthers have been built over the last few years. I think it was theirs to lose. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, things kind of went a little astray there. But now moving back to this team, this is the most excited I've been about a hockey team since that team that came into the 1920 season after winning the Stanley Cup. And there's so many reasons to defend that point of view. One being obviously how they grew last year. Second big one is they have what I believe is the best communicating coach in the National Hockey League. The third is, like I said, they're so well balanced that we can go in any direction you want. But I mean, between the older veteran guys that have been around the block that are such incredible leaders, to the guys just locked in their prime, like the Thomases, and of course the Kairus now with the Parekos, and then you have this young crop of just fresh blood. Not just fresh blood, but fresh blood that's going to make a difference in the game. I mean, Jimmy Snuggerud put on weight. Talked to him the other day. He just ate this summer. He looks bigger. He looks stronger. His body, it looks like he's primed and ready for the NHL. You look at some of these other players, this Carbonneau kid. I don't think he's going to make the team this year. I don't think going to make it out of camp. However, he's been one of the most noticeable players through rookie camp and, of course, through 2 preseason games. This is Doug Armstrong's words. Another player to keep an eye on is this Jiricek. This kid is a complete and utter stud. We talked to assistant GM Tim Taylor last week before the Dallas game, going through the roster of all these young players. He spoke about Jiricek in great length, and you see why. We saw him play a couple days later in Columbus. This young man is kind of that next and up-and-coming, which a lot of people are saying is that next Alex Pietrangelo. He's big, he's strong, he can defend very well. I was super impressed by his mobility at the blue line to make defensemen miss. But the greatest thing about his game is he's just fearless. He just goes after it. He doesn't keep his game very simple. He's just a bit of a wild horse, bit of a cowboy when he plays out there, which is really exciting to me. So you bottle all that up with what I believe is the best goaltending team in the National Hockey League. Alex, it's very easy for me to see why this team is going to be so good. And I think a lot of people around the league are going to be very surprised. And they're going to remove the Blues from being that kind of middle pack team in the Central Division to a team at the end of the season is going to be kind of fighting for a top spot.
All right, Joey, I want to bring you in on the conversation that we've had a number of times about Carbonneau. You mentioned him there. He's been one of the most noticeable players on the ice, both over the summer and now as we get into training camp. Can you walk us through, from a player's perspective, what are some of the benefits or some of the downsides to taking an 18-year-old like Justin Carbonneau into the regular season and giving him that 9-game trial run and then making ultimately the decision as to whether or not you send him back down to juniors?
Yeah, to me, it's the downside is right off the hop. One of the downsides is, of course, because if he's not ready to the point where he's going to help this team win. If this isn't the Buffalo Sabres, this isn't the Seattle Kraken or the San Jose Sharks. This is a team that has their sights on the playoffs and really competing. So with that being said, yes, it's 9 games in an 82-game season. I mean, BK, last year, remember, they got in the playoffs at the very last game of the season. I mean, every point matters, and especially early on. It's hard to play catch-up in this league. And you're probably thinking, listeners out there, well, Joe, what the heck are you talking about? The Blues played plenty of catch-up last year. That was a rarity. That teams do not put together 12-game stretches. It just doesn't happen. So, that is the exception. You have to start on time. You have to have that month of October be very good. The Blues have been amazing on home ice last season. Can they come in and do that again? 7 of the first 11 games all in October are on that home sheet. So the majority of the games they're going to be playing are at home. Can they continue to be good at home? Can they continue to grab points early and put themselves up towards the top of that Central Division? And then at times when they have their bumps and bruises, well, then all of a sudden you have some cushion. You have some points that you banked earlier in the season to kind of to cushion those, if you will. The issue with a young player like Carbonneau, if he really can't come in and help this team win and play meaningful minutes, to me it's just not going to be worth it, because the team, you're going to put the team now in a bad spot. I get the growth. I get the experience. But that's something you got to be aware of. At this point in the game, we just don't know. And it's hard to know because all he's done is played at a rookie camp and a couple of very early preseason games, which, to be quite honest, was more of a minor league and junior league roster for the first two for the St. Louis Blues. So it's very hard to get your grips on that. How can a Carbonneau, yes, he went up against a Sam Steele pretty good, but how is he going to go up against a Jamie Benn? How is he going to be defending a Robertson? How is he going to be defending a Tyler Seguin, if you will? You know what I mean? So things like that, as the camp continues, they're going to start figuring out that answer. They're going to start figuring out, okay, now we're playing some big boys. Now when we host the Chicago Blackhawks or we host the next team coming to town, at the end of this preseason, we're going to have a better vibe because this is an NHL-ish roster where he's going head-to-head against. He may surprise everybody even more and say, hey, he is ready. Let's give him those 9 games. It's good experience, and he can help a team win. The thing for Carbonneau, which is a huge advantage for him when you're 18, like you mentioned, it's actually a luxury because, you just don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean? You have this kind of naiveness as a young player where you just want to go in, you're just hyper-focused on just like kicking butt. And this kid he just wants to kick some butt. Tim Taylor, again, talked about his personality. He walks around like he's got this very healthy swagger to him. It's not arrogance. It's not cockiness. It's just he feels very good in his own skin. I remember when David Perron was a part of the Blues organization his first couple of years. David kind of rubbed some players the wrong way. He was he really owned himself in his own skin, if you will, where he just had this illuminating light of him that he's the man. And that's to me encouraging if you can back it up on the ice. And that's certainly what now Carbonneau has done. So you have an 18-year-old kid. He comes in the game. Heck, he doesn't care if it's, Connor Bedard. He's going to hit him. He doesn't care about it. He wanted to pick a fight in Dallas. He was hoping that Jamie Benn, this is true, he was hoping that Jamie Benn was going to be in the lineup. He wanted to fight him. Those are the types of deals. Yeah.
I love this guy.
Yeah. And that's like where you want to take an 18-year-old kid and be like, hey, easy there. Yeah. Slow down there, big cat. But you know what? He doesn't know because you don't know what you don't know. And that's the advantage of having an 18-year-old. They're just excited to play the game. And they just want to go out there. And they don't care who they're going up against. They're going to play their way. They're going to play it very well. So to me, that's the advantage for him.
Well, congrats, Justin Carbonneau. After that quote, you just became a fan favorite in St. Louis if you were already looking to fight Jamie Benn in your first preseason game. Joey, if this is the way you feel and this is true, I mean, that roster battle doesn't seem as tough as we originally thought because if Carbonneau doesn't make the team, in your opinion, is it just going to be Texier and Joseph, or do you think somebody else could push one of those guys out?
I don't know. I think that for sure Carbonneau is in the mix, right? I know Dvorsky is in the mix. They've loved Stenberg. He's a player in the mix. This Kaskamaki. To me, Kaskamaki, Stenberg, Carbonneau, Dvorsky, they're all kind of in this pod. Like they're on this little bucket, if you will. And I think one of those guys can separate themselves from the pack. And if one of those 4 guys can really separate themselves from the pack, they can push a veteran out. So really, to me, the step number 1 is which of those 4 young guys is going to separate themselves. And then if let's just say, for example, it is a Dvorsky, and he has an incredible camp, and he makes incredible strides. He does well at center. He does well in wing. He's versatile. We can move him around. He looks confident. He looks primed and ready to start the season here. So that's great. Now you figure out which veteran can they push out, right? And now he may not be ready to push any veteran out. And then you stick with the guns you guys got. You put Dvorsky back in the minors, and then we just keep moving forward. But for the veteran side, Alex, to answer your question, these veteran players are smart. They understand the business. They understand where they are at their age. They understand, looking back at last season, how much they played or didn't play. What was their opportunity? They understand that it's got to be an important camp. Alexander Texier, he knows this has to be a very important camp. He was one of the best players on the ice in that Columbus game, in my opinion. He was on his toes. He was playing fast. He was agitating. He was creating. Great start. He has to continue that because, again, he knows that some of these young guys are going to try to push him out. Another one, Oscar Sundqvist, one of my favorite Blues of all time. He knows he's not getting any younger, right? He's not getting any faster, but he's getting smarter, and he needs to use his strength. He knows he's smart. He knows he can defend. He knows he's got great instincts in the game. Those are all the gifts he needs to continue to bring. We haven't seen him yet in the preseason, but he needs to bring that, right? Because he's at this age. I don't care if he's won a cup or not. He's still got something to prove. The other one for me, another veteran that knows he needs to have a good camp, is Matthew Joseph. One of the other players in that Columbus game, I thought he was one of the best players on the ice. I saw him after the game. His speed stands out. When you're watching the game where Matthew Joseph's playing, and again, it's early, but in that game particularly, it's almost like he's got that lightning speed, that cheat code on the Sega Genesis, old AB, up, down, where he is just buzzing, right? He was flying. And I said to him after the game on the plane, I said, man, you looked fast. He goes, I felt good today. I felt good. He needs to continue that. He has got to use that gift if he wants to separate himself, where a young guy is not going to push him out as well.
Joe, it's great to catch up with you, man. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today, as always. Good to be able to get your insight on some of these camp battles that are taking place. We got a couple of weeks left prior to the start of the regular season. We'll be breaking it all down for you over the next couple of weeks, and then we'll talk with you again prior to the home opener on October 9th. All the best, buddy. We'll talk with you again soon.
Hey, thanks, boys. This is why Thursdays are my favorite day of the week. And for all you listeners out there, Thursday should be the best day of your week, too.
God, I love it.
That's right.
That's
love
a promo right there. Love
really,
it, Joe.
Monday to Friday from 11 to 2.
From 11 to 2. Yeah, but specific.
The best time of the day.
Best time of the day, but there's one day in particular that you love, and it's Thursdays.
Right. Joe, appreciate it, man. We'll talk with you soon.
See you, buddy.
Thanks, boys. Thanks.
You got it. That's Joey Vitale joining us, as he will each and every Thursday throughout the Blues season here on BK and Ferrario.
I love that guy.
He's the best, truly. Like, I really do mean it. He brightens my day whenever we're able to talk with him.
Does the same when he walks into a room. You just get excited with that one. So, but I, he said what you said on Carbonneau, and I totally understand that. I
don't want to believe it. I would rather watch Carbonneau on the team. It's more fun.
I do watch him fight Jamie Benn.
Yeah, my God, are you kidding me? He's already talking about trying to fight Jamie Benn. I love this about that. But, like, that's the part that it is going to be very difficult for him to make this
100%.
roster. But if I'm Jim Montgomery, and I'm not, but if I was, and
First of all, the team would be terrible.
Yeah, a team would be like first overall pick, no doubt.
He'd last as long as Payne.
I'd have excitement though. I've had energy. I'd have energy. If you gave me Texier or Carbonneau and said these two guys are your last option for the roster spot because Joseph's going to make the team, you get Texier or Carbonneau for 9 games. I would take Carbonneau for 9 games because of that upside. And I know there's a chance that I could fail. But, guys, and this isn't supposed to be directed towards any meanness at Texier. Texier can make the same mistakes that Carbonneau makes on that third line. But Carbonneau's got that offensive upside. And that's what I want for depth.
Where I think the Blues would disagree with you, it's not necessarily my point of view, but from the Blues, they would say, we also believe that Texier has offensive upside. Because they've said that's from the moment that they signed him, right? Like they
but I got a full season of evidence to say I didn't see it.
There were some injuries there. Again, I'm not pushing back against what you're saying. Yep. I agree. I would be arguing in favor of Carbonneau getting this opportunity, but if we're going to also understand, hey, there's another side to this. Joey just presented it. The Blues, I think, will present it.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that the Blues will not bring Justin Carbonneau into the regular season on the roster. That's my current position. And in the event that they do, these will be some of the explanations as to why.
Yep.
I think what T-Bone said about the roster manipulation, roster management stuff where, hey, we get to keep this asset. We don't have to get rid of him. We're not getting rid of Carbonneau. He's just going down and playing in juniors, as was always expected to be the case this year. Joey mentioned they've got 3 other dudes that can help them this year that'll be at the AHL level, whether it be Stenberg or Kaskamaki or Dvorsky. They've got depth with young players that are also available. There's no need to rush this with Carbonneau. You can wait one more year and still get that 9-game trial period next year, and then you can continue to decide where he's at as he's 19 years old next year. So you're not, you're not into a time crunch here. You've got plenty of opportunities. I think these will be the explanations as to why they do not bring him on the roster. But hey, man, if they do, I think it'd be fun as hell. I love it.
One other, and I know we're late on time, but one other note I wanted to mention, him talking about Juracek, I think we talked about this on the show.
Yeah.
That is a resounding response by a lot of Blues personnel of this kid. And to think about the fact that in that draft, they got a top 10 potential player because of an injury at 16, and then they got Carbonneau at 19, who's also viewed as a top 10. That's how teams get into a winning window consistently, because you get steals in the drafts.
The Blues are really good at this. The drafting stuff, there's no doubt about it. They're one of the best drafting teams in the NHL over the last 15 years or so.
Absolutely.
All right, with Alex and T-Bone on BK, coming up next, NFL Quick Hitters here on 101 ESPN.
You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Bradford in here as well. We are not broadcasting live at the ENB Granite Studios today, but we'll be back out there next week.
That's okay. We wouldn't have had much anyway because they're not skating today.
Well, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters. Thursday night football tonight. Seahawks versus the Cardinals. 1.5-point line in favor of Seattle this evening.
Hammer that right now.
I like it as well. T-Bone, are you on the Seahawks side of things?
Yeah. The Cardinals have done nothing that's all that impressive.
Cardinals they're a team that nobody should be believing in right now.
And they're without their starting running back. It's hard for me to envision the Cardinals winning this football
If this was in our pick'em, this would be my 3-point play.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how confident I am.
Well, speaking of pick'em, this weekend sucks for picks. It's brutal. I was trying to go through some games that I like going into the weekend. There are very few that I feel comfortable with.
In fairness, 2 of the 3 weeks in your pick'em challenge have been brutal too. So
I would say 1 of the 3 weeks have been brutal. The other couple, I feel fine about my picks. It's a last second, one way or the other situation. The Ravens pick I felt good about. They just collapsed in the very end. The Rams pick last week against the Eagles, I feel good about that still. And it just, something that never happens. They block a kick and then return it for a touchdown. It happened in the moment.
But yeah,
sometimes you're on the right side and you still end up losing. Those are different. That's the pick 'em. I'm talking about
that's
picks.
what I meant. That's what I meant, not our picks.
Oh, I'm talking about against the spread. Straight up, I think I've got a pretty good feel for this week. We'll see. Famous last words.
Last words for all of us.
Well, somebody's getting shot next week.
Against the spread is brutal. It's rough this week.
I feel like after that, I felt like that first week with the spread was like, okay, these are pretty obvious. Since then, I feel like they have been very difficult. But that's the NFL for you, right? Now you get a little bit more knowledge with them, and then the lines start staying within 2.5, 3 points of each other.
The thing that's tough is injuries. I like the Commanders. I don't know if I like them as a favorite on the road at the Falcons if they're going to be with Marcus Mariota and no Terry McLaurin, though. And we don't know right now who's going to play in that game. So it's a tough spot right now if you're doing picks in the NFL. We were talking about our Survivor picks earlier today. I think it really comes down to one of 3 teams for you this week. If you still have the Bills available, that's the obvious. That's the gimme. They're going up against the Saints at home this weekend. I like the Lions this week. 9.5-point home favorite against the Browns. If that's on the road, I feel a little differently, but at home, feel pretty good about that. And then the other one that a lot of people I think are going to use is the 0-3 Houston Texans, but they're at home, divisional game, against the Tennessee Titans. I think those are really the 3 main options this week for you in your Survivor pools.
The Texans, to be frank, I was in here talking to you guys. That was one of my 3 options that I felt pretty comfortable with, and it was more so, it's like, look, I feel like it's one of those games that Houston can't lose because you're at home, coming off of a loss. But I also understand Houston is just dog poo these days. And do I really want to lose on me chancing it with the Texans? So it's one of those. But
I'm not comfortable with that.
I think I've fallen. The final 2 that I had were the Packers on the road in Dallas and then the Bills at home. Those are my 2 final Survivor pools that I'm just going back and forth with.
Last week I went with the Seahawks. I've already used the Bills in my pool. So I think this week I'm probably going to be sticking with the Lions at home against the Browns. It's not a comfortable feeling, but nobody's particularly comfortable right now.
At least the Lions, I feel comfortable in saying though that matchup may present its troubles with that defense of the Browns, at least I can confidently say, hey, I kind of trust the Lions, right? The Texans, I don't care who they're playing. They look like a team that could lose to the Saints. That's how much I don't trust the Houston Texans.
So I know that a lot of the focus this weekend is going to be on the Chiefs versus the Ravens for obvious reasons. Both teams go into this one at 1-2. The loser will fall to 1-3 with some big games coming up on their respective schedules. Do you have anybody else that's feeling the pressure right now that you look toward this weekend and you see what they've got and you're like, man, came into the season with expectations, and if you lose this game, things start to get away from you, or if you win this game, I look at you a little differently. Who is the team this weekend that you feel like has some pressure on them to perform outside of the game of the week?
Yeah. Is it weird that I feel like there's pressure on the Vikings? And it's odd to say they're 2-1. But
even with a backup quarterback?
Yeah, because I think the starting quarterback doesn't look any better. That's right. If you lose this one with your backup, what's the hope?
It's in Dublin, so those games are always weird to me. I don't know.
it just
how
feels
that
like
influences your feeling on it.
It's already a tough road to be a playoff team in the NFC, and like the pressure on the Vikings was you just came off of an incredible season. This should only be going up. You made the decision to go away from Darnold for McCarthy, and now I understand McCarthy's not there, but again, he's been bad the first 2 games, and if you're 2-2 and you lose to Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers, boy, I don't know how there's any more like optimism or upside for this season in the NFC.
The one for me would be the Falcons. And I don't know if it's fair to say that they had like super high expectations coming into the year.
Adam is my division winner.
Yeah, I thought they had a chance to win the South, especially because the Bucs were starting off with so many injuries, and they've only gotten worse from there. But you're going up against the Commanders. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. Like, there's a chance Daniels doesn't play. It's kind of an unknown. We know they're without McLaurin for this game. And now I look at your quarterback and I go, man, Penix looked awful last week. And that comes off of the week 1 performance against the Buccaneers, where I was like, man, I know they didn't win that football game, but he made some plays down the stretch of that game. He used his legs. I was like, okay, I can see why they did the whole weird, we're signing Kirk Cousins and drafting Penix thing. And now I watch his last performance and go, man, I actually don't know that Penix is going to get this kind of figured out at the NFL level. They are the team that's got pressure, and the quarterback noise is what's going to be the thing that could really sink them, because if he plays poorly against the Commanders, man, there's going to be a lot of talk in Atlanta of should they go back to Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I would go to the game that we talked about as a potential survivor pool pick, and that would be the Houston Texans. You're 0-3. We all know what the issues are. They have a terrible offense, and more specifically, they have a horrible offensive line. They have no running game to speak of. The offensive line is not allowing for C.J. Stroud to get comfortable in the pocket. And your 3 losses are at least somewhat understandable. You went on the road to play against the Rams. It's a really good team. At home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's a legit playoff team. And then last week, you go on the road, divisional game against the Jaguars. I can at least explain it, even though I think it's mostly excuse making. There's no excuses here. You are at home against the Tennessee Titans, who are one of the worst teams in the NFL so far this season. They can't seem to get out of their own way, to the point where they're already trading off assets. We're not even a halfway to the trade deadline yet, and they're trading dudes now. If you find a way to lose this game, or if it's a really close one at home, not only will I have questions about the Houston Texans, but I think they're getting close to firing mode. Not necessarily for the head coach, but at least coordinator level at that point. Dude, next week they have the Baltimore Ravens on the road. And then you're into the bye week, and that's for sure when you get into potential firing. So the Texans, to me, are one of the teams that I would pinpoint that has a huge amount of pressure going into this.
I got another one, and I don't know how much pressure you guys would say, but I feel like the loser of Bears and Raiders is going to have pressure on them.
Agreed. That's a good one.
Bears, obviously, with the Ben Johnson, and like the pressure is going to be all pointed towards, dude, Caleb Williams, what the hell's the problem here? And the Raiders, there weren't high expectations. There were expectations you should be a playoff team.
There were at least hopes.
Yeah. And you're 1-3, and you potentially lose against one of the worst offenses right now, even with Ben Johnson, for how inconsistent they are.
I want to see their offense get to running the football. The Bears have been really bad defensively so far this season. If the Raiders can't get anything going offensively on the ground in this game, it just might not happen. And so why did you select Ashton Genty if this was the expectation for your running game and you weren't going to invest in the offensive line? Genty is averaging 3 yards per carry, and so far this season, on average, he's been hit in the backfield. Like, he has not been able to get to the line of scrimmage before getting hit on average so far this season. It's a negative yardage total prior to first contact. So, yeah, maybe try to fix that up when you're going into a game like this against a Bears defense that's really struggled so far this season.
You should have selected an offensive lineman in the draft.
Something like that.
Nah, what if we? But he's a generation type running back.
So I've heard.
I like him. I think Ashton Genty is going to be really good, but there's only so much that you can do when you're getting hit that far in the backfield with regular.
It is funny when you think about like a lot of the latest high first round picks. All these teams forget, like, hey, the running back like can't just make everybody miss in the backfield. Like, we actually got a block for him. Like, I look at the Giants with Saquon. It's like, okay, cool. Like, we saw it when Saquon went to the Eagles, right? That guy could be like an MVP candidate when he has an O-line.
It's
New
the
York,
last thing you drop in, not the first thing that you put in your offense. Alongside T-Bone and Alex, I'm BK. Bradford Brun's in here with us today as well. Coming up next, Nolan Arenado is saying all of the right things. Is it going to change anything this offseason about the direction and the tenor of those conversations? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
Tanner Hendrickson here to tell you about my friends at DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, which is coming soon here to the Show Me State. New Missouri customers can download that DraftKings Sportsbook app today, and when we go live, place just a $5 bet to unlock $300 in bonus bets. Starting November 17th, you can create your DraftKings Sportsbook account here in Missouri and get ready for launch day on December 1st. As DraftKings Sportsbook brings everything you need to elevate your game day, including live in-game betting, lightning-fast payouts, and endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when we officially go live in Missouri, you'll be betting with the Sportsbook app trusted by millions. Safe, secure, and has fast money withdrawals. So download that DraftKings Sportsbook app now and grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when we go live December 1st. In partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus. Physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
Cards officially ousted from playoff picture. I'm Bradford Bruns. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Last night in San Francisco, the Giants captured their series finale versus St. Louis 4-3, meaning the Cardinals now mathematically eliminated from postseason contention. The team is idle today before beginning its final road series of the campaign. That'll be tomorrow at Wrigley Field, 1:20 p.m. start for Miles Mikolas on the mound. Elsewhere right now, Pittsburgh in Cincinnati delayed by weather at 80 and 78. The Reds still technically remaining alive in the wild card race. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Nolan Arenado is saying all of the right things. Is it actually going to change anything this offseason, though? Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Katie Wu reported this over in her piece today on The Athletic. Quote, Arenado is expected to expand his list of teams that he would waive for his no-trade clause. He revealed that on Wednesday he will be more open-minded to the trade process overall this winter. Arenado is agreeing to expand his options, and that'll help, but ownership will almost certainly need to rethink its stance on Arenado's contract as well. To give Mo Zalok's successor, Chaim Bloom, the best shot at facilitating a trade, ownership will need to be willing to eat significantly more of Arenado's contract, roughly $40 million over the next 2 years. Arenado then said, Katie Wu, in an exclusive interview, quote, I would really like this to not go the way that it did last year. At some point, I'll talk to Heim. Then we'll hopefully have a good plan on how to approach this. I'll be very open about it, and I know he will too. Alex, do you think this is going to change anything? Or are we going to see a repeat of what happened a year ago?
I think we're going to see a repeat of last year. I mean, it's funny to me when that quote was said, because I don't want what happened last year to happen this year. Well, what happened last year didn't have to if you would have accepted the trade to Houston. But instead, you nixed it, a team that was on your list. And I know that you're saying you're expanding your list now. Guys, how many teams were really in on Arenado last year? Not many.
Probably two.
Yeah.
Houston and Boston.
Yeah.
Seemed like.
I don't. Houston's not going back to that table again.
No.
And Boston doesn't need to. So I don't see a team. He can expand his list to whomever he wants. But if he wants to be on a playoff team, because that's my expectation, is Arenado is going to put teams on there that are playoff likely teams, they're not going to call for Nolan Arenado, even if the Cardinals are willing to eat more money on this one, which I don't believe they're going to be willing to do. So, no, I don't think this changes anything. You can say all you want, that you don't want it to go this way, and you hope that the best happens for the Cardinals and for you. But I don't see teams that are going to be interested in Nolan Arenado for what their Cardinals are going to be willing to eat.
Yeah, I just don't know who the suitor's going to be for him, because he can expand that list, as Alex is saying. But who's the team that's going to want Arenado, right? It's one thing that Arenado wants to go to him. That's great. Okay, but who's the team that wants to take him on? And depending on the money that they're willing to eat, even if he is at like $10 million, okay, do you want a just defensive third baseman because that's what he is at this point in his career? I don't know if there's a team in baseball that's going to really look at that. Yankees are maybe the one where they've been so bad defensively and they were awful at third base this year that maybe they finally explore it again and look at it. But otherwise, like you look at some of these teams that maybe he does expand that list out to. You know, you look at like the Mets, they don't need a third baseman. You look at like the Dodgers, they don't need a third baseman. Padres, they don't need a third baseman. Diamondbacks don't need a third baseman. And I don't even know if that they would be open-minded for that kind of a move. I just don't see the path for him to be out of St. Louis. I don't see the team that wants him. That's the problem in this situation. Last year, he nixed probably I said at the time, and I think me and Alex are in agreement on this. I think Houston was his best chance to get traded out of St. Louis last year, and he nixed that because he panicked after they ended up moving on from Kyle Tucker.
I think the only way Nolan Arenado is not a Cardinal next year is if the Cardinals just buy him out and say, we're going to just DFA you and eat the money.
I think there's going to be a team that convinces themselves. I think this is going to come down to Arenado. I don't know what his thought process is here. He says he's going to be more open to opportunities elsewhere, but what does that mean? Being open to things is helpful, but how open? Because last year it was apparently, he said 5 teams. It was actually 4 because he nixed the one team that was on that list of 5 that decided to trade for him. So, okay, are you going to be open to 7 or 8 teams now? Because that is technically more open than you were a year ago. You might have to be open to like 15. He might have to open himself up to destinations that he never in a million years thought would have been of interest to him. I mean, like, would he be open to going to a place like Detroit? Because that could make some sense, in my opinion. They don't have an established third baseman on that roster. I think it's been McKinstry for most of the season this year. He's a fine player, but if you can go to Nolan Arenado, I don't think that's a bad idea. Would he be open to trying out a place like, I don't know, Washington and seeing if something is different there, right?
See, that's the problem, though. Those are the teams that he's not going to go to.
I know, and this is what I'm saying is what is the list? Maybe Seattle is a team. They traded for a third baseman this year at the deadline. Is that something that they'd be open to where, hey, you come in and you are a replacement for us there? I don't know. I don't know what his plans are, but that's going to be what it requires this offseason. It can't just be a few teams that are on his list. It might be half of the league that he's open to going to and saying, hey, it's time for me to leave St. Louis. Let's see what's out there for me.
Yeah, and I think it's potentially, like you mentioned, Washington. They probably don't even fit into this category I'm going to bring up, but he's going to have to be open to fringe playoff teams, right? Like he can say what he wants about, hey, I want to go win. I want to be a part of a winning team. I want to be on a contender. Contenders aren't trading for Nolan Arenado. You know, they're not taking on a defensive third baseman at whatever the dollar figure will ultimately end up being, depending on how much the Cardinals eat.
Most likely.
I would say yes, but smart organizations I don't think are making this move. It's organizations that you say have to kind of convince themselves, And I think those are teams like the Tigers that you're talking about, like Cleveland, if they decided to get involved in this kind of stuff. Like, it's going to be those fringe playoff teams that are making those moves that have to convince themselves of, okay, this is an upgrade on the margins, is what they're doing to make an acquisition of Nolan Arenado. And I just don't know that he's going to be willing to do that. I'm kind of with you. I don't know if he's willing to expand his list. I'm skeptical if there's going to be enough teams out there to make this trade happen, let alone if he's going to be willing to go out to a team that, like, you projected like 82 wins going into the season.
You said it, sorry, BK, you said it with Sonny Gray, and I think it applies the same with Nolan Arenado. He also has a family to make these decisions on. And it sounds like he and his family are going to be more open to it than maybe Sonny Gray has been, but he still has a family that has got to make this move with him. And that's why this list may be expanded. It's not expanded to all 30 teams, and you get to decide where you want to go.
I don't know on this one. This one, to me, he's gone through now a year of uncertainty where, yes, his family, he's made all of these decisions and all of that. Like, now his family has been living with this uncertainty for a year. And I think that can change some things as well, where once you get the word one way or the other, if you expand your list with aggressiveness, and now there is half of the league that you're open to, or maybe he just says, hey, find a deal, I'll let you know after you've got the deal. Right, like, because then he just puts the onus on the Cardinals, and he can then go back to his family and say, hey, are we comfortable living in Kansas City? Right? Are we comfortable living in Baltimore? I don't know who the teams are or what, because some of these teams, they've got a player that's blocking Arenado at that position. Maybe they want to move that player to go get a pitcher or whatever it may be, right? So some of these teams that appear to have a third baseman now may not in December when a move like this is possible for Arenado. And then he just goes back and is maybe a little bit more open to it. So I'm not as ready to dismiss the idea up front of a legitimate contender taking on Nolan Arenado. We look around the league right now. There are a lot of teams that do not have great players at specific positions. Arenado is not a great player right now, but he does bring value. Him being a great defensive third baseman, there's value in that. And being a below average hitter, a lot of these lineups can maintain that. It's not a huge deal for them. So, like, Philadelphia is a team that I know Jeff Jones brought up as a possibility for Arenado. He said, hey, if they decide they want to move on from Alec Boehm this offseason, maybe Arenado could be a replacement for him at that position. And so they get, maybe it's pitching for Boehm. Arenado goes in, fills in at third base, and that could be somebody that fits into the lineup there for the Phillies. The thing that he had as an intriguing, in my opinion, possibility here is, hey, instead of the Cardinals taking on some of the contract and eating the money, maybe the Cardinals could make a deal in this scenario where they're getting Nick Castellanos in return, who has not been good for the Phillies this year. He's been a below league average hitter, but he's not horrible. He has hit 17 home runs for them so far this season. And instead of just eating money, where you get nothing in return for it, you're just paying a guy to go away, you at least get some services for that money that you're spending. Castellanos has 1 year left on his deal at $20 million next season. Is that something you guys would be open to? Instead of eating money for Arenado, you take back what another team considers to be a quote-unquote bad contract for them.
As long as it's less than a year, or only 1 year, then yes. Because the prospect you're getting in return, to me, has no impact on your team in the future, because even a lottery pick, I mean, you're talking the low of the low for this type of trade. So if I could get something back that is a year away from free agency, that wants to try and reset himself, and maybe you get a more motivated player that can become a trade asset for you in 3-4 months when you hit the deadline, that to me is a better situation. And especially like in the example you gave with Castellanos, right field's not clogged anymore, in my opinion. Like, because I think the Cardinals are probably done with Jordan Walker. You're moving on from Lars Nootbaar. You've got Victor Scott and Alec Burleson that need to play outfield for you this season. So I got an open spot. So, yeah, I would take on a bad contract if it's just for a year to get off of the Nolan Arenado one.
Yeah, I'm open to it on, like, just looking at player-by-player basis. And Castellanos, yes, is having a down year, and his numbers have been going down for the last 3 years. But he's the kind of guy that I would still look at and say, okay, I could still see a path to where maybe he can kind of fix it for the first half. And because he's a pending free agent, somebody will look at him at the deadline and go, boy, we could really use some right-handed thump in our lineup. And then you can go out and trade him. Like, the reason I say player-by-player basis, like I look at Arenado, for example, and I say, man, I just don't see the path for him bouncing back. Offensively, look, he's still an elite defender, but I don't see his path forward offensively. I can still see it for Castellanos. So that's where I would be willing to take on his bad contract. Just flip those two. Phillies end up with a guy that's got 2 more years left. You end up with a guy that's just 1. Downside is okay, yeah, he doesn't bounce back, but boom, he's off your books by the end of the year. There's no such thing as a bad 1-year contract, and that's essentially what this is.
Would you be interested in Bohm?
I would have interest in
I'd
Bohm.
take a chance on that.
You just removed the middleman and say, hey, we're going to go ahead and trade for Alec Bohm, actually. He has not had the power that he once did. He's not that player. He's been a lot like some of the Cardinals prospects, where it just you see the incline, the steady improvement, and then it's just, okay, here's where we are. We're just a league average hitter with probably league average to below league average defense. He is a third baseman, and you have a logjam at third base right now. But is that the kind of player that you'd be interested in?
And see, I don't know if I have a logjam at third base, because if you gave me the options of Bohm or Gorman, I would take Bohm.
Where's J.J. Weatherholt playing for you?
Second base.
Okay.
Because I think Brendan Donovan is off this team. And if he's not, he's probably playing an outfield position. But yeah, I mean, I would take a shot on Bohm. How many years does he have left of?
Next year's the final year.
So,
it's
yeah.
probably about 10 to 15
So it's the same thing, Castellanos or Bohm. And I honestly, either of those I'd be fine with. I don't view third base as a logjam as some might, because to me, Nolan Gorman has told me everything I need to know at the end of the season.
And I think in this scenario, you're probably including a prospect. Like, it would be Arenado, and you're either like shedding a bunch of you're eating a ton of the salary for Arenado to the point where you're actually taking on more probably by bringing back Alec Bohm, or you're sending Arenado with a prospect, and in return, you're getting Alec Bohm, who next year, again, probably $10 to $15 million in the final year of his contract at the age of 29.
Yeah, I would have interest in that kind of a move. And again, it comes down to you acquire him. I still think there's maybe a little bit more upside to him in terms of, like, I think he could probably get his power back to where it was last year. I just have to wonder if this year was injury related, and that's what ended up sapping the power a little bit. Now, granted, I say that could be the thing that saps the power for the rest of his career. I've seen that happen with guys. But he is a little bit more intriguing to me because he's 29 years old. He's still in that prime age range to where, like, okay, if this does work out, again, you can go back to, do we trade him at the deadline because he's playing well, or do we look at him and go, okay, maybe we do like a little bridge contract with him, right? It's time to do a small contract extension. He becomes our third baseman as we go through this rebuild process.
Someone brought up trade Gray and Arenado for Bohm to Phillies. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't think you need to do all that. I think you can get a better return elsewhere for Sonny Gray. I think there's a real return that could be had there. But if you're talking about a prospect plus Arenado or eating money, whatever it may be, these are all just hypothetical scenarios here. But that's the kind of stuff that I think the Cardinals will be working through this offseason. And it goes into what T-Bone was just saying there, which is you're in asset accumulation mode. That doesn't mean it's an A to B, where trade player, get prospect. It could be trade player, get another player, which then leads next year at the deadline to that prospect that you're looking for. Alec Bohm might be the basically middleman here, where you're trading Arenado, get something, or with something, get Alec Bohm back. You get 3 months of his services. He allows you to be a little bit better as a team next year. Maybe he's the thing that helps you transition to Weatherholt by June. Maybe it takes longer than what anybody wants, but hey, it is what it is. Do the contract manipulation thing there. And then you get into July, you start looking at trade conversations for Bohm, and then you get an asset in return for him as well. These are the kinds of things that when you're going through a rebuild, you have to be open to. It's different conversations about the way that you evaluate some of this talent that's coming back in return. All right, with Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, we're diving into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
It's Monday Night Football on ESPN. Broncos and Bengals. Pre-game at 6:30. Kickoff at 7:15. Your destination for the NFL in St. Louis is 101 ESPN. Award Center is always loaded up with awesome giveaways. And right now, we have your shot to score an Igloo BMW Heavy Duty Cooler. Get entered to win at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Alex, you have young kids. Are you always impressed by what they do art-wise? They bring home what they did at school, and you're like, oh, that finger painting, it's really something special.
I'm the parent, too, that, like, my kid draws a picture of a dog, and it's just, like, 3 scribble lines, and I'm like, that is the best dog I've ever seen. She'll probably never be an artist because I compliment her on everything, but I love anytime they come home with artwork, I get way too excited.
Luca, over the summer, anytime that he would bring home any of his artwork, because it was, we're new parents to the daycare experience, we put all of it into a binder. So we've got his first summer of artwork in a binder downstairs that, he'll probably get 18 years from now and then throw away immediately. But we've got it for him.
Katie still has a container of all of her artwork when she was a child, and I'm like, what are we doing with this still?
The answer is nothing. It's just there. It's there to be there. But
the answer is I have to move it every time we need Christmas decorations, and I'm like, what is this? Oh, those are all my art. I'm like, why?
Yep, that is 100% correct. The reason that I ask is because there's a story that's making the rounds about kindergarten parents who are told to pay for their kids' artwork. It's being held basically ransom from the school in Australia.
What?
They are asking for $1,400 for the pleasure of taking home this curated portfolio of your child's artwork.
My child would be pulled from that school and placed into another one. That is insane.
Yeah.
Because I would imagine you're paying a tuition as well. Like, this isn't like a public school where it's free.
So, billed as a fundraiser, the debt-ridden center says that the money for the portfolios would go towards whittling down a long list of overdue bills, including unpaid wages for educators.
I
would be like, no, we're good. We're going to go somewhere else.
Sounds like the school's closing.
I would be livid if I was a parent and you told me that I need $1,400 for your kids' art.
Especially because, like, man, listen, is it the end of the world that I can't get my kids' artwork? No.
Yes.
But I would like to have that. I am certainly not paying you $1,400 for it. I'll pay you $20.
That's not what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say, like, like $20. I was like, yeah,
I'll pay you $100 for all of his artwork over the course of the entirety of the year.
$1,400.
But I pay their
$1,400 is
tuition.
insane.
That would make me really mad because I want to see the progress of my child, and you're basically holding the progress ransom because you want me to pay more money for the school.
Somebody said, typical BK hating capitalism.
I'll tell you, my daughter is now starting to write. They're teaching her in preschool how to write her name. And so, like, she does the letter every day, and, like, they show her name, and then they write her name next to it. She's got the A down, and then all of these other letters are just scribbles. And part of me is like, I want to be like, oh, that's so good, baby. Let's try and work on this a little bit more. But then the other part of me is like, no, I'm just going to, hell yeah, that's how you write your name.
Teacher can tell her the rest of it.
We set her up for failure, though. Like, her sister's name is Emma, and then Olivia, and then we decided her name would be Adelaide. So Adelaide Ferrario. Good luck trying to sign that moving forward.
Somebody on the YouTube chat, iRock, says, is that Aussie money or USA money? It is Aussie money, $2,200, US money, $1,400. So it is a legit $1,400 payment for the rights to have your children's paintings.
Sorry, my kid's going to be coming out of your school, and she will be attending another school.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit more about the college football playoff. What do you want the next iteration of the CFP to look like? I'm sure Bradford Bruns has some thoughts on this. We're going to do it next year on 101 ESPN.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm.
Hey, it's BK. It is time to unlock your inner champion. The place to do so is with Victory Men's Health. You can check them out today. They are online at victorymenshealth.com. They can do exactly what it is that you need to unlock that inner champion for you, and that means different things for different people. For some, that's erectile dysfunction that you're dealing with. For others, maybe it's weight loss goals that you've been trying to meet. For you, maybe it's low testosterone symptoms. You'd like to find out, is that what's causing me to have low energy? Is that why I'm not getting as much out of my workouts as I once did? They can check those levels for you over at Victory Men's Health. And if they end up coming in at the lower end of the healthy range for adult men, they can bump you back up to that higher level of testosterone. They can do that for you over at Victory Men's Health. Any of their 4 great locations across the St. Louis area are available to you. O'Fallon, Illinois, O'Fallon, Missouri, Sunset Hills, and Town and Country, where I personally go. They can unlock your inner champion today at Victory Men's Health. To do so, check them out at victorymenshealth.com. That's victorymenshealth.com.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
College football playoff. This year, we've got 12 teams. It's going to be great. Looking forward to it. They switched up the way that they're seeding. It's really smart. I like it. What happens from here is anybody's guess. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. T-Bone, they have switched this up again.
Oh, shocker.
They, after the SEC announced a 9-game conference slate, as you could probably imagine, that was a leading indicator that the college football playoff is going to expand once again. They cannot decide, though, what it's going to look like. They're still trying to determine that. And on Wednesday, 10 different conferences, and Notre Dame, of course, gathered for their annual college football playoff meeting. They discussed what the playoff is going to look like moving forward, and there was a serious discussion over what the format will be.
You sound excited, buddy.
Except there wasn't.
Oh, so you can't. They can't
what
come to
was
a conclusion?
missing at this meeting was a real serious discussion over the future of the playoff format. Quote, "We didn't talk about that a whole lot," College Football Playoff Executive Director Rich Clark told Yahoo Sports. Why? Because they're launching another committee on this. So they are once again going to decide what the plan is.
Eli Drinkwitz is up in storm. He wants 30 teams in.
One possible scenario is expanding to somewhere between 16 and 32 teams. If that seems like a wide range of options to you, it's because it is. They have no idea what the plan is. None. They have no clue what they want the college football playoff to look like. So my question to you guys, and I know, T-Bone, you love this conversation. Bradford, I want to get you in on this as well. In an ideal world, what do you think the new college football playoff format should or will look like?
go with you. I don't even know where I would begin of 20 to 32 teams. You guys are much smarter on this than me.
I think ideally I would only do a small expansion. I would start at like 16 because clearly they can't figure this thing out. So like what's probably going to happen is they probably are going to go small. They'll get to 16 and then they'll finally get to the conversation of, okay, now what about 24? And then they'll get to like 32 and then everybody's in. But I think 16 is probably the right number. Now, like how you work that out with like automatic bids, I think you probably just go top 2 in your Power 4 conferences, or at least top 2 in the SEC and Big 10. I'm okay if we want to do only the top team from the Big 12 or the ACC. And then you have a group of 5 team that gets in, maybe 2 group of 5 teams, but I don't think they would do that in a 16-team playoff. And then you have a bunch of at-large bids. I think that's probably the best way to go about this moving forward. I think 24 is just too many because, like, I look across college football, and look, I understand that the talent has kind of diversified out. You know, we talked about this yesterday or a couple days ago about, hey, man, I don't know that you're going to see a pure dominant team in college football moving forward on a typical season. But even then, like, I don't want to see some of these teams. Like, you look back to, like, last year's standings when you get to, like, a 24-team playoff or the 30-team playoff that they were talking about with, like, 4 automatic qualifiers. We're talking about Iowa getting into the playoff, guys. Iowa football. Nobody needs to see that. Nobody wants to watch Iowa football for 9 Big Ten games. So I think that's too many. I think 16 is probably a good sweet spot where you get elite teams that are in there. I'd say when you get at an individual season, there's 16 really good teams across college football. I think outside of that, you're really starting to stretch things
16 is the number that I would want. And I know I want that, but it's going to go to 20 to 30 something at one point. But what they had in the Yahoo Sports article of the 4-4-1-2-3, I think the format was, I liked that.
To explain that is 4 automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten and the SEC, and then
2 for the Big 12.
For the Big 12 and the ACC, and then 1 for the group of 5, and then you get 3 at-large bids.
I like that because it still keeps the competitiveness of teams bidding to get into the postseason. Now, I think if I read it correctly, once you do that, then the conference championship games are essentially gone for, which is going to be the difficult part to agree on.
Week in order to make all of this work with the timing.
I think 16 is the right number, and if you go above that, I think it gets too much, and it becomes a annoyance for college football fans.
16 is the easiest number, I think, with which you can work in the here and now. We all understand that down the line it's going to grow, right? It's growing to build. That's why, though.
Down the line.
Oh, my goodness.
Everybody gets in.
When you talk about maybe even getting into that 22-24 range, the numbers that you outlined, Tanner, think about what the Big Ten has proposed at this point, actually doing something along the lines of 28. It's just too massive. It's too unwieldy. I'm not shocked at this point in time that when you basically discuss some of these parameters for maybe even 20 minutes, you're not getting anywhere. And the next deadline basically comes. You have to alert the power brokers with ESPN, of course, by December the 1st if you go in a different direction next season. But guys, considering there's nothing else on the table for this management committee until the new year, I think you are set for another season at 12, and then the groundswell begins for 16. Thereafter, we don't know. 16, though, makes the most sense.
It makes sense. I'm open to a bigger expansion, though. But I think it would require there to be some kind of a play-in game. Like, if you're going to have a higher number, it's going to sound huge, but then when you whittle it down, it ends up like if you're replacing the conference championship game, it's basically the getting it down to that 16 once you get into the actual playoff, even if it is, a 24 quote-unquote team format. When you get things started, the starting point is just like, instead of the college football playoff, you have a game that actually matters to get you into what those playoff games are. Like if you had, maybe in this scenario that we're talking about right now with the 4-4-2-2-1 or whatever it may be, right? Maybe you end up those 4 teams from the Big Ten and the SEC, instead of having a conference championship game that then leads to the bye, the team that wins that gets the bye. I don't know how much of an incentive that really is, if we're being honest, because you have to play that extra game.
Agreed.
What if you have 4 versus 5 as the quote-unquote play-in for that spot as an automatic qualifier from those conferences? What if that ends up being the way that you do it? And maybe the at-large teams, if you've got, 4 of them, maybe it is also those 4 at-large teams are actually playing for 2 spots in the real playoff. Where that first weekend, you get 4 versus 5 in the Big Ten, 4 versus 5 in the SEC, 2 versus 3 in the ACC into the Big 12. 1 versus 2 in the group of 5, and you get a game where it's 2 versus 3 and 1 versus 4 in the at-large. And that is the first round, so to speak, of the college football playoff. So the 1 to 3 seeds in the SEC and the Big Ten, and the 1 and 2, or the 1 seed in the ACC and the Big 12, you get a bye into that true playoff format. It's a lot. It's a huge shift in the landscape of the way that we currently view college football. But you could have these games starting on like Friday night and then going all the way throughout the weekend. You could play it on different nights to avoid the NFL's games and all of these different things. I think you could really take over kind of the holiday landscape in the NFL or in the sports world. I think it could be really intriguing, and it's a bigger playoff, but it allows for a lot of these play-in types of games that would replace conference championships. Are you guys open to that?
I'm open to anything because I think there are a lot of people against expanding it from 4 teams, and we've already enjoyed it. I think on the surface, when you see it expand beyond 16, it's going to be like, man, now everybody gets in. It feels like it's a participation trophy. And then that first time you experience it with all of those teams and to what you're talking about with those play-ins, that's where the real excitement comes in. So I think at the initial stage when this expands, it's going to not look as pretty. But once it happens, I think everybody's going to be involved with it because you're getting more teams in and it creates more chaos.
And just as an example of what I'm talking about here, like to kind of bring us in on, okay, what would this have looked like last year?
Play-in games.
Yeah. Yep. Talking about the play-in games. If it was 4 versus 5 in the SEC to get into the playoffs from a year ago, I mean, we're talking about the following teams being up for this, depending on how the tiebreakers all work out. Bama, LSU, South Carolina, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Mizzou. Those teams all went 5-3 in the SEC last year, so 2 of them would have been in the play-in game for the SEC. The top 3 in the conference last year were Texas, Georgia, and Tennessee. So those teams are going through, and the other teams that I just mentioned would potentially be up for this play-in game. I mean, Ole Miss was ranked 11th in the country. That seems more than reasonable to have them as a part of the play-in. For the Big Ten, just as another example, last year, Oregon, Indiana, and Penn State were the top 3 teams in the conference. So it would have been Illinois versus Ohio State for this play-in game last year. That doesn't seem crazy to me either. So you're not including just like, USC wouldn't have been a part of this last year. You're not getting these crap teams into the college football playoff. It's still going to be really good programs that are a part of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
It's like top 25 teams.
I think when you get to about 5 is where that cutoff is in terms of the conference.
Agreed.
That, I think, is where I would cut it off because then once you start to expand beyond that, that's when you get into that Iowa range to where, I mean, we could all watch Iowa last year, and they're not a playoff team. Mm-hmm. Typically, on every given year, SEC, I think you really get this. You can probably guarantee that the top 5 teams out of the SEC are at minimum pretty good teams. Maybe not one of them is a great team, but they're pretty good football teams. I think when you look at the Big Ten, and this is where the Big Ten is the one that's probably throwing all this off in the meetings, if we're being honest,
yes,
where they're trying to lock in all of these automatic bids, it's because you look at the Big Ten. Typically, once you get outside their top 4, there's a massive drop-off, right? Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, those 3 are typically there. And then it just comes down to, okay, who fills the shoes of Michigan or USC if they're not on the upswing? And last year it ended up being Indiana, and they were a legitimately good team. There's going to be years where there's not a team that fills that shoe. And you look at it and you go, oh, boy, this 4 versus 5 in the Big Ten, not that impressive. I'm okay with that. But then when you start talking even further down the line, that's where I get the issues with the Big Ten, where they're shooting into that 30 range.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think what we're talking about here is, I mean, you're talking 24 to 30 is what this would end up being in terms of the total number of teams that are eligible for the CFP. But when you break it down and you actually look at what that means, I think this would be a great format for college football.
Does this cut any of regular season games out of the schedule?
No.
So you keep it the same format it is. You're just getting rid of the
12 games, nine conference games, as we were already seeing with all of these teams.
And it doesn't extend the season at all either.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't change much of anything other than instead of that what we currently have known as conference championship week, that's eliminated, and instead you get a play-in week where these teams that are 4th or 5th in their conference, if you're in the Big Ten or the SEC, they're playing. If you're 3rd or 4th in the ACC or the Big 12, you're playing. If you're one of the top 2 group of 5 teams, you're playing to get into the playoff. I mean, this is basically the playoff, but it's just an extra game to get into the actual bracket, right? It's the same thing as when we look at the NCAA tournament, those play-in games, yeah, they're dumb because they're, the 65th through the 68th teams in the country or whatever, but they get you into the tournament. And some of them end up going on a run. It's not out of the realm of the possible that one of these teams that would play in these play-in games goes on a run once they get into the college football playoff. So I think it would be really intriguing. Bradford, I'll give you the last word on this before we get to believe it or not on the other side. What are your thoughts on where college football playoff should be going?
Well, I long ago honestly stopped resisting the notion that the number is just going to get bigger and bigger down the line. What I want to see as this moves forward, because I do think that this is a critical element of it. I do think that this holds a lot of mystique. If you're guaranteeing me, basically, if you're devising a program here, a setup in which you get 2 rounds of home games, I do think those are especially attractive to the different stadiums, to the different fan bases. And then early on as well, during the first round, if you can kind of separate, if you have such a massive number, whether you're talking about 24, 28, or even 32. If you can separate the conferences for at least a round to kind of stretch that out, to me, that's what I want to see, because you want as much variety in play as possible. Even though you're building the number, you're continuously growing and growing.
He's Bradford Bruns. That's Tanner Hendrickson. He's Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. Believe it or not, coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
The Redbird Report. Your front row seat to all things Cardinals. From the dugout to the diamond, BK and T-Bone go deep with the latest news, notes, and analysis. Watch the Redbird Report on YouTube or listen online at 101ESPN.com. ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. Every month during the season, you can score a pair of tickets to a Blues game at Enterprise Center. A new winner is picked every month throughout the season. Enter to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app presented by Ted Drew's Frozen Custard. They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Was that because I flew 2 years ago with it?
I gotta say, guys, I'm happy we're not at Centene just so we can do this.
I thought about
you can't
that.
do that when you're at Centene.
True.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
Free, flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
Bradford, kick that music up a little bit.
Believe it or not, it's just me.
God, I heard myself
Maybe
way
that's
too
why I
much
fell
there.
off tone a little bit.
314-399-9646 is the air conference service text line for Believe It or Not. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are believing it or not here on 101
What's he
ESPN.
saying over there?
Oh, that was bad. I heard myself way too much on that. If that's what YouTube hears with no music,
Yeah, it's much better when you don't hear us as much and you hear more of the music.
Which Bradford loves the dulcet tones of BK, T-Bone, and Ferrario, and T-Bone knows how bad we sound and cranks the volume up.
Yeah.
I just wanted to feature you guys prominently.
Never not feature.
Never feature us, Bradford.
All right,
we're not
let's
that
get
good.
into it. Believe it or not, you guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we're believing it or not here on 101 ESPN. We were just talking about college football. Guys, believe it or not, there will be at least 24 teams in the next iteration of the college football playoff.
I'll believe it. 24 teams means a hell of a lot of money for college football, which is what the end goal truly is. So, yep, I'll believe it.
I'm going to say not believe it. I think they're going to get to the point where they're looking at this going, man, we can't agree on the format, which they'll probably end up settling on the one that BK laid out earlier in the last segment. And they'll panic and they'll go, okay, well, let's at least expand to 16, right? And then they'll quickly do a 16-team format that you look at. And then there's something that's wrong with it, like the 12-team, right? There was an issue with the 12-team format where they're like, hey, let's do like the 4 highest conference winners. And then Boise State had to buy. They're like, whoa, let's not do that. Okay, let's not do that. So I think they'll panic and they'll do 16 first before they get to 24.
Incremental steps, exactly. 16, pause it for just a year or so, and then go all the way to 24.
It's hard to retract. It's easier to continue to expand. I think they start out with 16, and then they get to where they want to go, which is like 24, 28, 32, whatever that may be. Alex, what do you got for us today?
Guys, believe it or not, Jordan Walker will never play more than 20 games for the Cardinals again.
Not. I think he's going to be a regular with the Cardinals next year. You keep saying, Alex, and listen, you may end up being right on this, that the Cardinals are done with it. I don't think they are. I think that the Cardinals are going to go through this offseason, and he will be your starting right fielder. If you're going to trade off Sonny Gray, you're potentially trading Nolan Arenado. We'll see what happens with Wilson Contreras. The team's going to be bad next year. You might as well find out what you have in Jordan Walker. You're trading him. You're selling him when he has zero value. So, yeah, I think he starts, 100 games again next year.
Yeah, I would not believe this one as well. I agree on the sense of I don't think he is written in pen into your starting lineup. I think he will be put in the Gorman/Burleson role going into next year, which is, hey, you're the guy on the bench. You have to earn this playing time back. And if you do, then we'll give it to you. If you don't, well, then you're just going to sit on the bench, and then next year will be the year they probably decide to move on from him. I think he's still going to be a part of the Cardinals organization. If we're being honest, when you're in a rebuild, a guy with a minus 1.7 WAR, that guy kind of helps your cause of getting more losses on
around there
in that loss category.
Yeah, well, my whole thought process isn't he's going to get traded. I don't know if he's going to be here or if he's going to be in the minor leagues, but I'm not believing this one.
Not believing it either. Last night wasn't pleasant. The entire season obviously hasn't been pleasant. Believe it or not, he suits up for 100 games next year.
Yeah, believe it. That's about where I think.
Oh, I won't believe that one.
I would believe that. I think he'll be about where he is this year. He's sitting at 108. I think it'll be somewhere close to that mark again.
T-Bone?
Guys, believe it or not, these 4 players will be traded this offseason off the St. Louis Cardinals. Sonny Gray, Nolan Arenado, Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan.
All of them?
All of them. All 4.
I'm going to say not believe it. I don't know if they get all of them.
I think that is exactly what they're planning to do.
Oh, they're planning to.
Yeah.
I don't know if they accomplish it.
I would say not believe because I don't know that they get out of Arenado's deal. I think they will try to trade all 4, but I don't know that they'll be able to move on from Arenado. Believe it or not, there'll be a 5th one that gets dealt.
Believe it. I think they're going to be super aggressive this offseason. I think this is a team that's going to make some pretty significant changes to the roster. I don't know who that player will ultimately be. There may be a surprise or two this offseason, too. Like Thomas Sajaci, just as an example of this. I think Sajaci has a role with this team moving forward. What is that role, and is that as valuable as what you could potentially get for him on the trade market? I don't know. So maybe they consider swapping him out for somebody's Thomas Sajaci that's in their rotation. Or, hey, somebody else has a number 5 starter. They don't see a whole lot of future there. He's really serving as like a 6th or a 7th guy for them. Sajaci's kind of in that role with your middle infield right now. I could see something like that. So I think they could make 6 or 7 different trades this offseason. And now that they have somebody new in charge that's not necessarily tied to any of these guys, I think it would make some sense to do that.
I'll believe that when I see it.
Yeah, the ones that I will find surprising, like Sajaci, that one would kind of shock me because he's got so much control.
Sure.
But I get where you're going in that path. The one that I'm curious about is Alec Burleson. Because when you think about Alec Burleson, really good player, proved he's an everyday player, right? Well, if you're Hyman, you're going into a rebuild. We've said this before. Alec Burleson is a good player. He is not a pillar. So do you try and capitalize while there is a lot of value on the market for a left-handed bat that's got pretty good pop, that can play outfield serviceably, but also if a team needs help at like first base, for example, like I'll look at the Seattle Mariners, right? I think Josh Naylor's a free agent. if I'm the Mariners, would I rather acquire Alec Burleson and have him be my first baseman, or go out to the market and sign like an older, more experienced first baseman?
Also, quietly 27 years old this offseason.
Yeah.
So that's not like he's not getting up there or anything. But if you don't think you're going to be contending for another 2 to 3 years, he could be close to the wrong side of 30 by the time that you are back into contention. And then he's, at the back end of his arbitration years. Is that something you want to capitalize on right now? I get it. I get the allure of trading a guy like that. This also might be a career year for Burleson. Who knows?
Let's stick with the baseball, guys. Winners of 17 of their past 19. The Cleveland Guardians have vaulted into sole possession of first in the AL Central. Believe it or not, the Gardos returned to the ALCS for the second straight year. It's a big-time Cleveland thing. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Trust me.
I still think that was made up.
Guardians was bad. I didn't know Gardos was even worse.
I'm here a lot on the weekends, guys, and those guys are planted in Cleveland. Gardos.
Bradford hears it.
Believe it or not, what was the part of that? I'm sorry, that threw me off the Gardos part of it.
They return to the ALCS for the second straight year. No?
No.
Hot team, baby.
They're hot. No.
Clip that.
I say not as well. I think the Mariners are the team that's coming out of the AL.
I have no idea. This year, I got nothing, dude. T-Bone mentioned in our group chat yesterday that the Dodgers have the feel of a team that has an early playoff exit. Yep, totally agree. So do the Brewers. So do the Cubs. So do the Padres. So do like everybody in the National League this year feels that way. Over in the American League, at one point I was like, oh, the team that T-Bone's talking about, it's the Red Sox. Look at how hot they are. They've got this young talent. That is a team that I'd be willing to bet on. I always like the Seattle Mariners. Every year I go to the playoffs, look at the rotation, got some interesting hitters. That's a team that I can back. And then they always lose. So I don't know, man. I think everybody feels that way.
I think it's going to be Mariners or Red Sox in the ALCS, and I think Mariners come out.
This team was 15 and a half games out as recently as early June. You overcome the gambling scandal. The narrative is there. Give it to me.
It's those old central divisions in baseball. Apparently, they're not very competitive.
Yeah, I just totally expect that they're going to flame out at some point. They just don't have a good offense. Like, their pitching's great. In October, you also have to hit, right? Like, it's the thing the Brewers seem to forget every time they get to October. Hey, look at our rotation. We have Woodruff. We have Peralta. We have Burns. And it's like, yeah, but your offense hasn't done anything.
Would you say they're lacking a star offensively?
No, because Christian Yelich is healthy again and a 3,100 guy, sir. So, no, I would not say that.
All right, let's dive into this from the 636. Guys, believe it or not, Bradford should start a college football podcast. Believe it, he's got one. YouTube.com/101 ESPN STL is where you can go for the college football connection. Believe it or not, Slinger of Cream says, believe it or not, Missouri.
Dude, you can't read that.
Missouri is the biggest sleeper for college football's CFP this year.
Oh, that's
biggest
fun.
Sleeper for the college football playoff right now is Mizzou. Sure, I'll go along with it.
Yeah, I don't know of another team that would be...
USC, they're ranked below Mizzou right now. I think they're legitimately in contention.
Well, once they kick the crap out of Illinois, they'll probably be more of a favorite.
Well, not after this weekend, am I right?
Don't knock after
Bradford,
your team lost
like
by 53.
Illinois this week, or do you like USC?
I like Illinois plus, 6.5? For sure.
Well, do you like Illinois on the money line?
I do not.
Okay.
Take it for your three-point play, T-Bone.
Oh, no, I really like USC minus 6.5, but I'm not going to bet against the boys. One other team that I don't know if they're a sleeper in this because they're kind of high up in the rankings already, and they're in a weak conference. Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, I think, is going to make the playoff. They've already taken care of business against Clemson.
How many ACC teams can get in, though?
Well, I think they will be they'll get to the conference championship, and then I think they'll be able to get in. That's why I don't know if they're really
What's
a sleeper.
happening with Florida State?
I'm not really buying Florida State.
Okay.
Miami, Florida, and I think Georgia Tech will be your two that get in the ACC. Because you look at the ACC, or you look at Georgia Tech's schedule, they don't have another ranked conference opponent on their schedule. So they should take care of business there. Then they could add another resume builder when they play Georgia to end the season at home. Georgia Tech, I view as a sleeper to get into the playoff.
I like that call.
I'm not convinced that FSU won't have some problems this Friday, honestly. Ooh. At Virginia, I'm serious. And we can no longer consider Texas Tech a sleeper, right? Just for the record. Okay, just for the record. All right, there you go.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll go through a couple more of these real quick. From the 314, believe it or not, the Cardinals rotation will include at least 2 new starters that are not currently in the organization next season.
If you're moving Gray and not bringing back Michaelis, I'm going to say believe it.
Yeah, I'll say believe it. I think it's 2. I don't think it's more than that, but I think you get 2 new ones.
Yeah, I would believe it as well. I think it's going to be one guy that they sign, to a bargain bin deal. We've thrown names out before, like Dustin May was a really good one. BK brought up yesterday, and then I think one will be acquired in a trade. I think they are going to. I think they will use Donovan to acquire a major league ready starter. I don't know if it'll be Newbar because Newbar's had a down year. I think they'll use Donovan to go out and acquire a guy that can slot into the middle of their rotation.
All right, 314-399-9646. Last one here. Guys, believe it or not, T-Bone gets married before the Cardinals win another World Series.
Believe it. I mean, the Cardinals have got such a long path.
Cardinals are within the next 5 years going to win a World Series.
I can
T-Bone.
do that.
It's going to take some time, buddy.
Yeah, once I figure out why my Tinder app's broken, I'll figure it all out.
The Tinder app is broken?
Yeah, it's just like my Twitter account. I can't find me.
I don't think it's broken.
Yeah.
No, I think it is. Yeah.
I'm just not baiting a lot of hooks.
That's what helps me sleep at night is to think that it's broken. You know, I thought there's a lot of left swiping going on.
Well, the good news is, once you get the special someone, you can make the marriage happen fast.
You're supposed to be confidence builders, and I'm not really getting that.
Marriage advice, don't try and beat this, believe it or not. It won't bode well for you.
It happens when you least expect it, Tanner.
See?
Does it?
When you least expect it.
Okay.
Like, who would have known that BK
would
in a
get married?
Closet from his future wife?
That was not how we met.
Oh.
Just to be clear. I was not hiding in a closet, and that was our meeting point. We had, at that point, been dating and going on dates together for about 6 months.
Sorry, I like to think of it that that's how you met.
No, that would have been a better story, that's for sure. All right, he's T-Bone, that's Alex, that's Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, has Cal Raleigh done enough at this point to earn the MVP for this season? We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario.
101 ESPN salutes our nation's military. Join the Fast Lane next Thursday, October 2nd, for a special live military appreciation broadcast from 2 to 6 p.m. at Scott Air Force Base for service members, their families, and anyone currently on base. Join us for this special Fast Lane military appreciation live broadcast next Thursday from 2 to 6 p.m. at Scott Air Force Base. Brought to you by Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation. For heating repairs and maintenance, visit aircomfortservice.com. Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Cards to wrap it up at Wrigley tomorrow. Good afternoon. It's Bradford Bruns with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet, plus Johnny Londoff Autoplex. St. Louis is idle today after dropping its series finale last night versus San Francisco. That final was 4-3, officially eliminating the Redbirds from playoff contention for 2025. Tomorrow afternoon at Wrigley Field, St. Louis showing down with the Chicago Cubs. Miles Michaelis gets that nod on the mound at 1:20. Right now, the Reds and Pirates remaining scoreless in the bottom of the third inning. This evening, NFL-wise, 101 ESPN carrying Seattle and Arizona for you. Kickoff at 7:15 p.m. Pre-game preceding that at 6:30. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alex, did you know Aaron Judge is batting .330 on the season?
I did.
He has 51 home runs. He has 133 runs scored. And his OPS plus is 200.
Yeah. Monstrous season.
And I'm not entirely sure he's your MVP. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Bradford Bruns and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We've got a big studio here today. All four of us in studio for the rest of this show. Alex, Cal Raleigh last night hit his 60th home run this season. He has done that as a primary catcher. If you like the wins above replacement statistic, he's been worth 9 wins so far this year as a catcher, which is just astronomical. He's pretty close to stealing 15 bags. He has 14 stolen bases on the season as well. Just a fun round number here for you. So 60 homers, potentially 15 stolen bases, and playing arguably the most difficult defensive position in the sport. Is that enough this year for him to win MVP over Aaron Judge in your mind?
In my opinion, yes. The part that gets me, I always think of most valuable player, the guy that if you plucked them off of your team, where would they be at? And you can make the same argument for Aaron Judge, but where are the Mariners in the standings and where are the Yankees in the standings? The Yankees are tied for the top spot. The Mariners are comfortable in that top spot. And then the part that you just mentioned is my selling point. I understand the slash line, the OPS are astronomically in favor of Aaron Judge. But Cal Raleigh has 60 home runs, and he has played 119 of his 155 games behind the plate. He's played 155 games and has stayed healthy this season to hit 60 bombs and also be behind the plate for 119 games and having the 8th best ERA pitching staff in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, but Alex Judge was in right field for 90.
Judge was in right field for 90. And you know what?
He's been the DH for 55.
There you go. There's the difference with this one. So, to me, Seattle is not a first-place team without Cal Raleigh.
I don't think that the Yankees are a very good team at all without Aaron Judge. So I think that argument for me, I'm not disagreeing with that at all, Alex.
Here's where he shoots me down.
No, I actually agree with the overall, your conclusion of it. I just don't think that I can use the which team would be worse without this player argument, because I think the Yankees would also be not a very good baseball team if not for Aaron Judge. I think he is the reason that they are winning the way that they have, and I think that Cal Raleigh is one of the reasons why Seattle has won the way they have. So that, to me, is not a tiebreaker for them. For me, it's the position. If you're going to do this as a catcher, that has more value than Aaron Judge doing it as a designated hitter for about 50% or 40% of his games this season. Aaron Judge is amazing. He's unbelievable, and what he has done this year should be celebrated. He leads the league in batting average, on-base percentage, and in slugging percentage he's done this 3 of the last 4 years now. It's absolutely unbelievable. We're watching a player that's going to be remembered among the best that we've ever seen do it. His OPS for his career is over 1,000. It's just nonsense. For somebody to do this in the day and age in which it is harder than ever before to hit, kudos, man. Kudos. He just happens to be doing it in a league this year where somebody's doing something I've never seen done before from that position in my lifetime. So I would go Cal Raleigh personally. I said at the All-Star break, this is the year of Cal Raleigh. It's what I will remember the season for most, is what Cal Raleigh has done as a catcher. T-Bone, where do you fall on this?
Yeah, earlier I did have and when I mean earlier, I mean like a month ago, I thought, boy, Cal Raleigh might be the guy that ends up with this. But, man, the more I look at Judge's numbers, I think it's Aaron Judge that ends up winning the MVP. And I hate to take away from Cal Raleigh, and I think it's something that will be undervalued by the voters, because I do think they should look at his position a little bit more. But I think they're going to look at more of the numbers, not the position. They're going to go, yeah, like 60 home runs, that is impressive, but we saw Aaron Judge do that 3 years ago. And I think they're going to look at it and go, Aaron Judge. That's the thing, and that's where I say, like, I think they're going to undervalue his position. I think they're going to look at Aaron Judge and go, man, this guy hit 328 when that shouldn't happen anymore. Yeah. Like 280 is a good batting average now. He got on base 45% of the time this season, and he slugged 681, and he hit 50-plus bombs and drove in 100-plus runs. And by the way, scored 133 runs, which leads baseball. I think the fact that he leads baseball in just about all those offensive statistics and in terms of WAR at 9.3, I think the voters are just going to look at the numbers, not the position. They're going to vote for Aaron Judge. And I don't really mind that either. I think I would probably vote for Aaron Judge because he has all those numbers there as well.
Do you know what the previous home run record was for catchers in a season? Most home
40.
runs by a catcher in a season.
I was going to say Piazza had 40. So, yeah, I don't did anybody do that more than that?
I don't think
One player. Javi Lopez in 2003 hit 42 home runs as a catcher.
Was that Braves or Orioles?
Braves. And Cal Raleigh this year, specifically as a catcher, has hit 49 home runs. When he is lined up, when he is in the lineup as a catcher on that day, 49 home runs this year. 60 total, 49 when he was lined up primarily as a catcher on that given day. Javi Lopez has had 42 in doing so. Todd Hundley had 41. And then Roy Campanella and Mike Piazza both had 40 as a catcher in those seasons as well. So, yeah, he has 33% more than the season that we saw from Mike Piazza. I'm rewarding that. To do it as a switch hitter at that position, that's my MVP this year.
Also managing one of the better rotations in Major League Baseball.
Yep. For a really good team, like, you add it all up, there's just too much here for me to say, no, not going to reward that guy as the MVP this season. I understand Judge has been amazing. This is not a shot against Judge. And in most seasons, he'd be my MVP. But this is one of those years where somebody else did something that I think is too much to be able to overcome. Yeah. For Aaron Judge.
I think the tough part for Cal Raleigh, and I hate to say this because I wish it wouldn't be true, I think if they flip teams, Cal Raleigh wins MVP. I think being in New York helps Aaron Judge to an unbelievable degree, because if you put Aaron Judge out on that West Coast in Seattle, a lot of your writers wouldn't be watching him as much as they watch Cal Raleigh. And like, that's unfortunate. That shouldn't be how it works. But I think that will be a driving force as to why Aaron Judge will win the AL MVP.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Somebody on the text line said, guys, what did Salvador Perez have in his season? So he had one season where he had 48 home runs. I'd have to look at it. I don't know how many of those came as a catcher on that day. I'll go ahead and look into it right now. Yeah, that season, he ended up hitting 33 as a catcher. 15 of them came when he was in the lineup in 40 games as a DH. So most of his best production that year offensively came when he was lined up as a DH on that day, whereas Cal Raleigh this year has done most of his damage as a true catcher in the lineup. All right, coming up next, we'll hit the rewind here on 101 ESPN.
It's Thursday Night Football. Cardinals and Seahawks. Pregame at 6:30, kickoff 7:15. Your destination for the NFL in St. Louis is 101 ESPN. to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at gloriahasthebuyers.com.
Alongside Alex Ferrario, Tanner Hendrickson, and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. Appreciate all of you tuning in today. If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That is always sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app is super easy to use. It is free to download, and that is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. By the way, each week the Fastlane and the Riz Show are battling it out in the Pick'em Challenge. It doesn't go well for me most weeks, but sometimes they all come together to hang out and watch some football. You can join Jamie Rivers and Rizzuto from the Riz Show tonight from 6:30 to 8:30 at Hot Shots in Lindbergh in South County. Come watch Thursday Night Football game. Get signed up for some Point in 101 ESPN giveaways and enjoy a cold Bud Light. That's tonight from 6:30 to 8:30 with Jamie Rivers, Scott Rizzuto, and Bud Light at Hot Shots on Lindbergh in South County. Today's show, I would give it a 8.6, pretty solid rebound given the fact that we were anticipating we'd be out at Centene today. Then the guys are not out there for skate, so we decided to call an audible. Bradford got to hang around for the last few hours. Been a good show. And T-Bone doesn't have to do any of the podcasting, so really...
Well, I do got to do some podcasting.
Oh, yeah. Bradford's like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Damn.
No way, Bradford.
No, it's not like that.
Helping
It's not
us
like
out.
that.
Wow.
We're all
No.
carrying on a number of different responsibilities.
I love how Bradford said, well, he's got stuff to do. So I said, well, you just take care of some of it, and I'll finish it, so it won't take me as long.
This is teamwork.
He wasn't listening.
I love the fact that Bradford said during the last commercial break, okay, T-Bone, here's what I've done so far for the podcast.
He wasn't
Here's what
listening.
needs to be done. I said, okay, cool. And then BK's just like, hey, no podcasting for T-Bone.
Yep.
I wasn't listening, as you can probably imagine.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
reading something, and I did not hear that part at all.
I was reading something. No, I'm with you, Bradford. I don't expect you to do that stuff.
Yeah, I expect
We're all here.
Bradford's score to now be lower.
We're all here.
Of the show today.
Mine's at 8.2. Way too much Cardinals today.
Oh, see, I like a lot of the Cardinals talk.
We're done with it, man. Now we're officially done with it. Until we hear Heim talk, and then Heim can talk, and then we're done with it.
Done with what?
Cardinals.
Well, the Redbird Report will be posted later on this evening at youtube.com/101 ESPN.
Right next to it, you'll see the Last Minute Blues podcast, which was posted yesterday up on YouTube at 101 ESPN STL. And then probably the most popular out of all of them, College Football Connection.
My brand new podcast.
Look at you. And then T-Bone, you dropping another podcast maybe? Other than Redbird Report?
not yet,
No.
no.
Spread Zone's available for you right now as well. YouTube.com/101 ESPN.
We are
STL. They've got the
potted
picks
up.
over there.
As the kids say.
Dad Pod may be coming soon.
No, I know
Politics
better
pod,
than that.
Theology Pod.
I
We've
know
got
better
all
than
the
that.
pods.
Yeah.
We're potted up. And that's lit. No cap.
Will you turn his mic off,
I think that was like
Sean Alexander just
Someone
announced that he has he's expecting his 14th child with his wife. He and his wife Valerie are expecting their 14th child.
How many does Philip Rivers have?
I think he has like
12,
7,
I think.
12? Is it 12?
I thought that's what it
Go
was.
from 7 to 12.
He's 10.
Who did you say
10.
7 there?
Oh my
14?
gosh! Well, that guy needs to get to work then.
Yeah, Cromartie has 14. Remember when he was on, what was it, Hard Knocks, and he couldn't remember all their names? That was a sad.
He was struggling.
Oh, that is not a good look. That is bad. That is bad.
I had to get on anxiety medicine with 3 kids.
Yeah.
I don't know how 14 is
Does that
even
not make
possible.
you think you need another one?
No, I've made this. That's not happening.
All right, to finish out the show today,
God bless
before
you,
we
Sean.
hand things over to the fast lane, Cardinals officially eliminated last night. Sounds like Sonny Gray is probably going to have a wandering eye this offseason at a minimum. Nolan Arenado is more than happy to go elsewhere as well. Your immediate thoughts, 30 seconds or less from last night, being eliminated, the news on Arenado and Sonny Gray was what, Alex?
That the rebuild is coming, and it's not going to be pretty for the next couple of years. And I mean, we didn't get to this, but T-Bone brought it up. It did make me also wonder, what's this going to look like with Wilson Contreras as well? Because basically all these people are like, I want out. And Wilson's like, I used to not want out, but do I now? So, I mean, this again, it's satisfying because it felt like the Cardinals needed to get to this point. The NL Central and National League itself allowed them to be in this playoff conversation all the way up until this point, but it's about to be a brutal couple of years for Cardinals fans.
636 also said, we also need that reality TV pod soon. That is also coming. T-Bone?
When did that happen? But look, for them being eliminated, we talked about it. They kind of self-sabotaged themselves from early in the year, not sending Fernandez and Roycroft down sooner, starting Fetty about 2 or 3 starts too long. When you look at what Sonny Gray's doing, it makes me wonder. They'll be able to move him. If Sonny Gray wants out, they'll be able to trade him. I have no questions about that. I'm skeptical that they can move on from Nolan Arenado, and it does make me wonder if Wilson Contreras will want to stay around, because if he wants out, there will be value for him as well.
Just all makes me sad. I've talked about this before. I hate the idea of a rebuild. The fact that Sonny Gray is potentially going to be gone next year, it's more or less going to be a salary dump. I don't like that idea for the Cardinals. I also wonder how you replace him. Is that something where ownership comes in and says, hey, all of this is for money reasons, and therefore you need to move on from players on your roster, make those trades, and in return, you're requiring that you get major league ready pitching back, which changes what your other return could have been in those scenarios. So I don't love that. Sucks that they ended up missing out on the playoffs because of things that they had as self-inflicted wounds. This is where we're at, though, with the Cardinals organization. It's honestly a minor miracle that they lasted up until the final series of the regular season to even be in contention this year. All right, if you guys missed anything from the show, be sure to check it out. We gave you our full extended thoughts on the Cardinals missing the playoffs, the Arenado news, the Sonny Gray news, what the college football playoff could look like. Joey Vitale joined us. We talked about Justin Carbonneau, all of that on the podcast page after the show today. 101 ESPN is also saluting our nation's military for service members, their families, and anyone currently on base at the Scott Air Force Base. Join the Fast Lane for their Military Appreciation live broadcast next Thursday. That's October 2nd from 2 to 6. If you're on base, we hope you stop by the Fast Lane's live broadcast. The Military Appreciation broadcast is brought to you by Air Comfort Service, Heating, Cooling, and Insulation. For Alex, T-Bone, and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane is coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Each week, the Fast Lane and the Rizzuto Show are battling it out in the Pick'em Challenge. But sometimes they come together to just hang out and watch some football. You can join Jamie Rivers from the Fast Lane, also Scott Rizzuto from the Riz Show this Thursday from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Hot Shots on Lindbergh in South County. Come watch the Thursday night football game, get signed up for some Point and 101 ESPN giveaways, and enjoy a cold Bud Light. That's this Thursday, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. with me, Jamie Rivers, and Scott Rizzuto at Hot Shots on Lindbergh in South County. Brought to you by Bud Light, official beer sponsor of the NFL. Easy to Sunday, easy to enjoy.